Welcome back to the Compendium of Discomfort, everyone. My name is DECosmic, and I am joined by my good pal, Don Michael Mosquito.
Hello.
I had a really good joke at some point to introduce him, but I forgot it halfway through this week. And I went to bed every night trying to think of this joke again, because it was relevant to what we're going to talk about today, but unfortunately, I didn't write it down the first time, so there we go.
Great David Lynch said, if you don't write down the idea, you will want to kill yourself.
It's true. And man, was he correct.
Yeah, smart guy.
Boy. Yeah.
Actually, what are we going to talk about today?
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about the release of Ninja Gaiden 4, which is a 3D hack and slash game. It is originally a Team Ninja game by Koei Tecmo, and it's actually it was actually co-developed by PlatinumGames this time around. So from what I know, PlatinumGames handled the majority of the development. They would make the builds, and then Team Ninja would give them the feedback on them. Prior to this, the reboot of the franchise for Ninja Gaiden, so from 2004 to 2012, was done in-house at Ninja Gaiden. Or I'm sorry, at Team Ninja.
Yeah, it gets confusing, all the ninjas.
Yeah, not to be confused with Ninja Theory, but you know.
Vastly different, even though at some point they act within like the same genre, roughly.
Yeah.
And not to be confused with Ninja Blade either.
No, not at all to be confused with Ninja Blade, the FromSoft game, which has one of the worst PC ports I have ever had the displeasure of trying to get working. Maybe the computer that I have now will overpower it, but I talked to one of the speedrunners for that game, and I was like, how'd you get it working? And he said, I didn't. The game's port sucks. We are here to talk about Ninja Gaiden 4.
Yeah, not the fourth one in the 2D series, which does have like 5 or 6 games or something. I forgot. It's
something like that. Yeah, there was a lot.
It's quite a few. Yeah, but it's the one, as you said, the 3D one that started on the Xbox, the original one. Back then, just Tecmo, well, Team Ninja within Tecmo, and and helmed by Tomonobu Itagaki. The inceptor of the
creator,
3D and Ninja Gaiden series and Dead or Alive. Yeah,
Dead or Alive. I forget what game he was involved with at Tecmo prior to Dead or Alive, but he was like a programmer on one of their games.
Tecmo Super Bowl, I think.
Yeah, it was Tecmo Super Bowl. Yeah, and then he ended up creating both the Dead or Alive series, and then helming the reboot for the Ninja Gaiden franchise. Yeah. Which I guess we can talk about now. Itagaki actually passed away pretty recently, about a couple of weeks to a month prior to the release of Ninja Gaiden 4.
I think the exact date isn't like public, doesn't really matter. He died sometime in October, essentially, 2025.
Yeah, exactly. And he was a pretty interesting, although divisive figure, I would say, in games. And I think that a lot of the cred for him really goes to when a lot of developers were sort of looking to like how to evolve how they made their games in terms of balance. He was really sticking to the old school philosophies of, constantly the game is in competition with the player. Yeah. And I think that, that is something worth mentioning, although, obviously there are some aspects of Ninja Gaiden that I am not a fan of, in the early games due to this philosophy, but I would much rather a developer have a strong vision that I at least somewhat disagree with than a wishy-washy vision that I don't necessarily, or that I agree with more. Yeah. He definitely had some strong visions.
Like, mostly known as, like, because he directed the first 2 3D games, which is Ninja Gaiden 1. Yep. It's re-release, update, whatever, Black, which is that's on the, not really, it's like the same thing, essentially. And Ninja Gaiden 2. Which is all 360 release, and all the Sigma ports and 3 and everything onwards has no involvement with him, to my knowledge. I think he had already left Tecmo at that point. Yeah. And as you said, like, because we will have to talk a bit about like our general like relationship with Ninja Gaiden, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it is like somewhat divisive. I always felt like this isn't really to say it's like bad or people don't like it or anything, but like DMC, which is like the direct, not competition, but for a lot of people it's like the comparison, because it's like the fast action games, Devil May Cry, Ninja Gaiden, Bayonetta, all that stuff, is like, and I don't mean this as in a good or in a bad way, is like the less offensive game, so to speak. Not as in like you don't play Ninja Gaiden and you're like, oh, I'm offended, but more in the sense of there is a lot of edges, and a lot of these might be the result of Itagaki having like this very specific design vision, which is represented in the games, and which does result sometimes in me going, hey, that's stupid, you shouldn't have done this. but I can kind of respect it. I think in Ninja Gaiden 2 this is way stronger than in 1, in Black, I should say, to avoid confusion. I think Black has like as a game, it's like much better than 2. I want to say much like more unified. It's like a much more complete product, I want to say, in terms of there's less stuff where I just shake my head and even though it has a few really weird bosses, but it is true. Like generally speaking, I think this is the better game of his, the better 3D Ninja Gaiden he directed. But I think this is a result of what you said earlier, where Ninja Gaiden 2 is this very strong vision that it just doesn't always work out in its favor, to my like from how I personally see it. Where actually I can condense this into a good example from Ninja Gaiden 2. The famous stairs that a lot of people who haven't played the game also even know, which is like towards the end of the game. This sounds stupid, the stairs, but it spawns so many enemies which the 360 just straight up can't handle, and it just drops frames even without any particles or anything on screen. It's just too many dudes. And this is like definitely the idea. Itagaki thought this section should have this many dudes, should have even more dudes, and it doesn't quite work out because the 360 can't handle it, but also you can't help but respect it.
Yeah, no, it's like he's going for the vision, right? And it's like, yes, I think that on the one hand, I do think that the stairs that lead you to like the big bad essentially should be guarded to the teeth. But also, I would like to play that fight at full frame rate.
It's like a very crystal clear vision. It's not blurry at all, but it's also kind of stupid. But you could also argue it's the other way around. It's a stupid vision, but it is very crystal clear. You know what I mean? Like it just kind of depends on. Like if I hadn't played DMC prior, and my mind is my action gaming mind, I have to say, is essentially melded by DMC. Whenever I play an action game, my first comparison is DMC.
Yeah, same.
But if I hadn't played that prior to Ninja Gaiden 2 and I get to these stairs, I would have just been like, this is the coolest thing ever. And this is like, I think Ninja Gaiden 2 is like very flawed, but it is a very, very fun game to play. I think the basic gameplay, just interacting with stuff, is really, really good.
I really like, I actually kind of like Ninja Gaiden 2 more than Black. Because I really appreciated the like more linear level design that was offered in Ninja Gaiden 2. And I really liked just how hitting buttons in that game felt.
Yeah, for sure.
If you had asked me like, a year ago or maybe 2 years ago, what my favorite Ninja Gaiden was, I probably would have said Razor's Edge. But the more that I think about that game, I'm like, this game is like a bunch of cool decisions wrapped up in some really bad decisions. And like, I mean, there's no consumables, there's no like items or anything in Razor's Edge. And when we talk about like the vision, right, like very early on in DMC, for example, there's a lot of like consumables that you are designed to use quite often until you get better at the game. And Ninja Gaiden kind of has the same philosophy where you start out using the items, and then once you get better at the game on repeat playthroughs, you use less and less of them. Now, when you remove those from the equation entirely, and your only answer, like in Razor's Edge, or I guess Ninja Gaiden 3, is, oh, well, if you just fill this bar and then you use your Ninpo, then you'll be able to heal. It's like, that's not the same thing. That kind of upsets the balance a little bit.
Yeah.
Also, the bosses in that game are just bad.
Yeah, like, I mean, Ninja Gaiden 2 has a bunch of really bad bosses, but Ninja Gaiden 3, first game they made after he left, to my knowledge. I don't remember if they made... No, DOA 5 came first. DOA 5 is
I believe so.
First, and then Ninja Gaiden 3. And Ninja Gaiden 3 is pretty rough. The original release, it's...
I hear it's really rough.
Ryu had one weapon, and everything else was sold as DLC. Then, the original Wii U re-release came out in Razor's Edge. It got ported to PS3 and 360 later, and is available via the Master Collection now on modern platforms. On current platforms,
which,
I should say.
If you're listening to this and you haven't played Ninja Gaiden, the Master Collection is like a pretty decent place to start. A lot of Ninja Gaiden heads will tell you that, like, if you want the best experience, and like, I get it, right? If you want the best experience, you'll play the original Xbox releases, which I am happy to report that if you do have like an Xbox One or you have an Xbox Series, you can play Ninja Gaiden Black for like $9.99 USD.
Yeah.
And you can play the original release of Ninja Gaiden 2 for about $29.99 USD, which is really solid for how old those games are and how not available they are in their original form otherwise. But if you are playing if you want to play on PC or on your PS4 or PS5, then you can always just get the Master Collection with Sigma 1, Sigma 2, and then Razor's Edge as well. And that's a pretty good way to at least experience them for the first time. You can't make a ton of like accurate statements about like the overall difficulty of the series based on Sigma 1 and Sigma 2 because they are toned down a little bit. But Ninja Gaiden 2 Black kind of which is the PC release, where they do like a visual upgrade with the Unreal Engine 5.
Yeah.
That does fix some things related to the difficulty, but overall, Master Collection, pretty good. And I think it actually goes on sale decently often.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Black is, 2 Black is like essentially like pretty Sigma 2 with some things fixed, as you said. There is actually some stuff they redid, but a lot of it is just the straight visual upgrade. It's pretty neat though, I should say. It's fun. It's a fun time. It is still Ninja Gaiden 2 at its core, which is a fun game. Three kind of not until Razor's Edge when they decided to fix it. Fun fact,
the Alchemist still exists, dude.
If I recall correctly, Ninja Gaiden 3 is the first game the guy who... what's his name? Fumiko
he ended up directing
Yasuda.
Neo, right?
Yeah, exactly. He went on to direct Neo. I think he's the CEO of Team Ninja by now.
I think so. I mean, don't quote me on that, but I can look it up or whatever real quick. So.
we simply believe it.
We will simply believe it.
The other director left, and I think Hayashi was the other director, Yosuke Hayashi. Yeah, and Fumiko Yasuda is the president now. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool to know.
Yeah, had a rough start, I guess, in the form of Ninja Gaiden 3. Sorry, man. Can't all be winners. But he went on to make Neo. And or direct Neo, I should say. And now we have Ninja Gaiden 4, which I think he served as a producer on because it is, as you said, mostly Platinum developed Platinum Games. Yeah. And
this is sort of like the first game where we see Platinum Games. I don't want to call it post-mortem, but they've lost a lot of like the key I guess I guess the key vision people in that company, right? The people that like founded that. Once when Mikami left, that's one thing, but like Kamiya leaving was like really okay, now we're really on our own. So now they are like very much like guns for hire action game people.
And,
that have a lot of Kamiya and Mikami-isms in their blood.
Yeah, and what's the director of Astro Chain, the combat director of Nier Automata? What's his name again? He also left, to my knowledge.
Oh yeah, and I think the director of MGR also left.
Yeah, Yosuke Saito is the director of MGR. I just can't remember. Takahisa Tauda is the name of the Astro Chain director.
The Astro Chain guy. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
And I think all of those have
now
left.
It is it's a lot of programmers now and like level designers and that sort of stuff. So
it's like all of these are talented people. So this isn't if they have like and we'll talk about this in a bit. But if they have like an actual guiding voice, which is the role of the director, then they can still make good games. And this is, as you said, this is what you meant by postmortem, is like this is their first game they make in this role, in this new role, with all their known visionaries having left, essentially.
Exactly, yeah. So it's not exactly like postmortem, but it is very much like a real turning of the page for this studio. Because it is one thing to, work under some visionaries that have created some of the most memorable games in the entire, industry. And games, I mean, even at Platinum, like Vanquish is still a game that and MGR, those are still games that we all come back to all the time. But, and Bayonetta obviously as well. But now it is like, we get to see, life after Mikami and life after Kamiya now and life after all these other people for Platinum. And I mean, personally, I think that they delivered, but this is also, I mean, in a sentence, right? They delivered for Nier Automata, so I didn't think that there was going to be any issue for them delivering here either.
Yeah, and the game prior to this would have been Bayonetta 3, which the producer actually of Bayonetta 3 actually is one of the directors for Ninja Gaiden 4. So definitely like still they retained a bunch of stuff. It's not like everyone just left. That's kind of how people framed it originally. They were like, "Oh, Platinum is dead." Not really. It's not. It's always hard. There's like this trend in the industry. The Warren Spector quote, trying to pinpoint the one guy who made the game, essentially. And I do think people that if you work alongside someone like Hideki Kamiya, it's like there's a very strong voice. You play all of the games he directed, and you're like, oh yeah, this is the same dude. Not that they're repetitive, but you can just tell it's him. So this is important. This isn't me trying to downplay that role, but these are talented people that make good games, and this doesn't just happen if you have a good director. The rest of the stuff needs to be there as well. And Bayonetta 3, which we are not going to talk about today, does have...
You don't want to hear me talk about Bayonetta 3 anyway.
It's got pretty good combat. That's what I'm going to say.
It's decent.
It's pretty fun and unique. It's got some issues.
It's decent if you like playing the... It's decent if you like playing the same weapon with like 15 different skins on it, I guess.
Yeah, this is like an issue they had ever since 2, I felt. Not 2, but like... Essentially...
I think 2 is still probably the most, like, the best casual experience for that series.
Yeah,
2.
Just a one-time playthrough, if you want to, but... then you play 1, and then you're like, oh, no, wait, this is way better now that I understand it.
Yeah.
Exactly. This is like the thing, what I mean, like, Hideki Kamiya directed 1, and you can just tell this is someone who makes good action games or directs good action games. And 2, not that it's bad, but it is worse, and it feels worse, and you can tell in a lot of ways.
I mean, what is it? The Umbral Climax or whatever, just on its own. Adding that in is like, okay.
Yeah, there's some bad ideas.
Okay.
But we're not going to talk about that. We're finally going to take this long ass bridge, which you just did.
Yeah, we took the detour. I don't know if I properly introduced myself. I just said my name is DECosmic, by the way, before we get into everything. Just a little bit of my background in action games. If they didn't listen to the Whackin' 1,000 Dudes episode,
which you should listen to the Whackin' 1,000 Dudes episode.
You should. Yeah, I am a speedrunner for primarily action games. A lot of what I became known for was the Devil May Cry series. Most notably, I did the Devil May Cry 5 run at Awesome Games Done Quick 2020. And I've also done the DMC4 run at Summer Games Done Quick 2023 and Vanquish for Summer Games Done Quick 2021. Those are like the big three that I sort of point to people with my the action game stuff that I've done. But I've also done tons of other like PS2 action games such as Chaos Legion and such.
Yeah, please watch the Van Helsing VOD. It's really good.
The Van Helsing one.
I like that one.
The game that is a run that that's the type of game that everybody thinks DMC2 is.
Yeah,
but, like Van Helsing is actually like that. Yeah,
that's the actual order you should play DMC, and you play 1 and then Van Helsing.
You play it 1, Van Helsing, then Ghost Rider, then DMC3.
Yeah,
and then you can play DMC4 after that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the basement order for DMC. But yeah, no. So essentially, you've played a bunch of action games to a certain degree, a certain length. And
played them a couple times. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, everyone here knows me. That's why you're listening to this.
It's true.
I hope so.
I also was the first person to put up a really shitty time on the Razor's Edge or on the Master Collection of Razor's Edge. So that counts for something, I guess.
So essentially, your world record runner, Ninja Gaiden.
Technically a former world record holder for Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge. Oh boy, that was... Man... I remember doing that run, and then it was 3.5 hours, and then now people have improved it by at least an hour. And somebody was like, "I beat your time because I thought you were gonna come back," and I went, "Okay, buddy."
I'm not running that shit. If I have to run that last level, again. No thanks.
Oh, dude. I was like, I respect it. I'm glad somebody beat that time because I didn't want that to be the world record, right? But there are games that I've run so that I just put up a time and I just put in the caption, "Please beat this," because it's just at the time I was really into it, right? I really enjoyed Razor's Edge a lot in my casual playthrough, and I was like, I really want to put up a time, just to say, okay, yeah, I did it. And I was just kind of feeling it at the time. There are times where I just boot up an action game and it's all right, yeah, I want to just play it.
Yeah.
That was not one of my finer moments, but we got through it. So Ninja Gaiden 4.
Yeah, we have finally arrived.
Where do you want to start? Yeah, we have finally arrived.
Well, it's been 13 years since the last entry. So
13 or 14, yeah. 13, yeah.
And I remember they showed it originally, and I was like, "This looks fine, but the sound is kind of shit." And that was my only real impressions was this looks fine, but because it's platinum, but the sound.
There are two ways that I could describe some of the hit effects in the game, in some of the early trailers.
Yeah,
and one of them is basically just cutting pool water.
Mm-hmm.
And the other is highly inappropriate, so I don't know if you want me to say.
No, it's fine. You can keep it to yourself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah. But it's quite lewd. But anyway, and I just came up with it now, so I'm not going to say it. But I'll leave it to the listener's imagination as to what I could possibly be talking about. But I've made the joke before that, in DMC Reboot by Ninja Theory, not to be confused with Team Ninja, Virgil always sounds like he's cutting pool water.
Yeah.
And Yakumo and Ryu, which Yakumo is the new protagonist that we'll get into, they both just, and it was I guess it's because they're just cutting, everybody's just wet, bro. Everybody is just wet with blood in this game. There is so much gore. They were I guess people didn't really like how in Sigma and Sigma 2 we didn't have a whole lot of blood, so they brought the blood back in Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, and now it's just just drench everyone in blood.
The new protagonist, Yakumo and the blood, the new two. And actually, you know what the sound reminds me of, which is something I realized recently when I was brushing my teeth, and I was brushing it with great intent, so, like somewhat aggressively, I should say, and I was like, this kind of sounds like when you hit too many enemies in Ninja Gaiden 4. So like, especially when you do, 'cause there's like a thing from the series where you do these the charged up attacks, ultimate art or something like that. I forgot the name. And
ultimate technique.
Yeah, and you hit a lot of enemies with those at once because they.
Oh wait, the blood raven form stuff.
No, the charged up ones where the ultimate technique was correct. Yeah, that's the one I meant.
Okay.
Where you have to charge them for a bit or you gather essence to do them instantly. And because when you do those, you do like this flurry of attacks. And when you hit a lot of enemies, that's exactly what that like sounds like brushing your teeth really aggressively. And I should say the sound in the full game is a lot better than in the trailers.
Oh, yeah.
I think the normal hit sounds still are kind of weird. They're not bad, but
they're a little bit wet.
They're kind of weird.
But...
I think the game sounds like a little overloaded. At times, there's
like
a lot of not that you can't tell what's happening, but there's a lot of sound at all times, and it's a bit strange. But as you said, it's like way better in the main game. It does not feel bad to play because of the sound, which was my original worry.
Yeah, I will say that like a lot of the problems that I see with modern action games that are not like AAA is that they lack a lot of like impact in the hits or whatever, and it's very clearly like this disparate idea of like mechanics, right? And it's definitely the case where in Ninja Gaiden 4 I do not feel that way at all. Like when you're hitting people, like the sound is a little overloaded, but like you are in there, you're in the moment, just like hitting dudes. And when like Yakumo cuts some dude's like head off, right? You know, and there's like the big like or whatever,
the finisher
to, like,
sound,
denote that, the finisher sound, or the little like crescendo that they have during those obliteration techniques, like it's just like whoa, it's intense.
There's a lot of really good sounds. Because as you said, we are just like a short introduction actually before we get into these nitty gritty details. Because I want to start with like the basic premise first. It's actually a sequel to 3 technically. Nothing from 3 gets picked up. I think the antagonist is from the DS spin-off, which no one played.
What, Achilles?
Dragon Sword. No, the Dark Dragon stuff.
Oh,
the
Dark
Dragon is from Dragon Sword, which is a DS spin-off. I haven't played that one. But I think that's where it's originally from. Let me check. Actually, yes, it is. Whoa. Which means nothing. Who cares?
No,
basic
nothing.
Introduction is I think the basic premise is actually kind of interesting, because essentially what the game does frame 1 is it goes, oh yeah, remember Ryu Hayabusa, and he's like in the he's like the coolest ninja ever. And also there's these other guys, the Raven clan, which Yakumo was a part of, which have always been in the shadows and like cleaned up after him. So and no one notices them. No one's supposed to notice them. So essentially, the game does like this, which is technically a retcon, because obviously these weren't there in the main games, but it frames it within like, oh yeah, there was just no way to know for you. That's their whole deal, that they don't make that kind of noise. They are not visible. So essentially, where a new protagonist in an action game normally makes me think Nero from DMC4 first. We're not really doing that, because this is like a very experienced character, Yakumo. He's not as good as Ryu. They do mention that, but he's not a nobody essentially. Not that Nero is, but Nero's like a young knight in training. He doesn't have full control over his powers, blah blah, that kind of stuff. We are not actually looking at that kind of situation. We have like not a master, but like a Yakumo's
Yakumo's a young veteran. Yeah. I mean, he's clearly designed by PlatinumGames, I would say, in terms of like the aesthetic and like what he's wearing and everything. But he is also quite capable. And there's like a lot of characterization that happens like on a minimalist scale. Like we don't know a whole lot about his personality.
Yeah.
He doesn't get he's not like written as well as like, Nero, for example, in comparison to like Ryu or anything like that. Like you're not going to walk away from this going, oh well, Ryu might be that dude, but Yakumo's a little better written.
Yeah.
Like they're both kind of minimally written, but that is sort of the point.
Yeah.
Like you can tell too that like a lot of the Raven clan being stuck in the shadows as they are, Yakumo in particular, there's a lot of like denial of self and a lot of just like he is constantly like putting aside his own feelings about things and he's just very focused on the mission. And there's a lot of like very just like ruthless things that he does in his animations where it's like, oh yeah, this guy knows his way around a sword.
Exactly. It's very well conveyed, I think. Yeah.
And I think it's very like to the point that I always tell people, we'll start at the beginning of the game here. I always tell people that like when an action game starts you in a fight, that is a good sign that you are going to be playing a game that is engaging.
Yeah.
And to the point of like DMCs or Bayonettas or that sort of thing, or MGR, you start in fights.
Yeah.
But this game kind of dials that up, and it's 20 seconds of dialogue into a fight. Like you don't even get to the cutscene where they explain the premise of like the Dark Dragon and the shrines and the priestess and all that. You hit new game, you decide your setting for your difficulty, and then your lady in the chair comes over the mic and goes, "Hey, Yakumo, where are you?" And Yakumo's like, "I'm going to kill them all. I don't know why I'm here, but I'm ready," or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, that's me paraphrasing, but the idea is it's 20 seconds of dialogue and then you are in a fight. And this is also kind of akin to Asura's Wrath, where the game does not expect you to adhere to any sort of like rules that are put in place until they're introduced. So for the first like 20 minutes of the game, you don't even have a health bar.
Yeah.
So the game clearly just wants you to like get in there, hit buttons, see how they feel.
Yeah,
and, from jump, I thought that this was a great sign, like, oh, we're here to play.
Yeah.
We're here to play.
And it's like super interesting too, because if you have played Ninja Gaiden games before, you will immediately try to press some specific sequences. You'll check, is square into triangle a launcher, for example. Which moves do I have? So can I can I spin the stick? Can I do what's my triangle combo? Can you even do triangle into square? You can't. Fuck you, Ninja Gaiden. I'm so mad at that.
You'll live.
Yeah, I will. You try all these buttons, and you just find out what things are, and then the game explains them later. And if you've already figured this out, you can just skip all that stuff. But it's like as you said, the first Bayonetta fight, which is very soon, where you also don't have an HP bar. You're just supposed to press buttons and hit things and see how do things feel, and the game does not explain anything yet. And yeah, that's good. I think this is it's like, I don't want to say confident, because confident is like a very weird word in this context. But they want to, it essentially means to me, they want to put their gameplay front and center, and they want to show it off to you right away. They want to put the game into your hands very quickly. And I think that's a good sign, because they clearly, there's like a sign where they clearly get what the main appeal is, which is pressing the buttons.
Yeah, definitely.
So
yeah, and it was quite jarring, honestly, because I'm like, the last game that I had started was Metal Gear Solid 3, and I had played through Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2. So like, I hit start game on Ninja Gaiden 4, and I'm like, okay, time to strap in for like a couple of minutes of cutscene,
exposition,
and then it's like 20 seconds later, I'm in control of Yakumo, and I'm like, whoa. Hang on.
Yeah, no, it's really good. I really like that stuff. And then you can skip these fights on replays, the intro fight, and just go straight into the first chapter, which is also really nice. Good job. You guys get it partially. We'll get into that.
They did it.
There's still some things they don't get.
There's still some things that they could bear to skip in repeat playthroughs.
Yep. But yeah.
So the tutorial takes us through a couple of new mechanics as well. Most controversially, I would say probably the meter or the Blood Raven form. Which essentially gives, like, it doubles the amount of weapons that Yakumo gets in his final count. And there are uses for a lot of these moves that are tied to this resource. And I think this is a little jarring for fans of the series because, so for example, you mentioned like doing light attack and a heavy attack is your launch. Yeah. In the old games, you could just press that and then Ryu would launch them and he wouldn't follow them. Yakumo actually follows with light and heavy automatically, but if you do it in Blood Raven form, he will not. And so people have talked to me about the game, say, well, they removed this thing. And I go, well, they didn't remove it technically. It's just tied behind the meter. And then they say, well, that's a lot of meter for that move. And I go, okay, but it's not gone. It's just somewhere else. Like, this is a totally different argument. You know, whether or not you want to talk about whether or not it's fair to not launch somebody for a bunch of meter, which I think it might be a little bit backwards in terms of resource allocation. But also, if you had to spend resources to Izuna drop, they would also be upset. So it right off the bat, Blood Raven form, which allows you to have these enhanced moves that do, I mean, they do a lot. When you charge them up, they have a lot of crowd control potential, which I think is probably the most crowd control potential that there's been in a Ninja Gaiden. And they also introduce an aspect to the combat of Ninja Gaiden, which is resource management outside of the Ninpo. And outside of the, well, I should say it's more active resource management, because a lot of Ninpo was just the stocks, right? This is actually managing a bar. This is more akin to managing like Devil Trigger with Virgil in a sense, because Virgil has a little bit more in that regard, since he can spend stocks in order to do spiral swords or blistering swords, stuff like that. Yeah,
so essentially the general idea is if you are holding L2 on the PS5 controller, all of your attack inputs and some other inputs, depending on your weapon, get turned into this some other form of your weapon. There's multiple weapons, and they all have vastly different. Blood Raven is what it's called, I think. There's a lot of blood in this game.
Blood Raven,
and for the two swords which he starts out with, it's like one big sword. And it does not mean all of your moves just get like big sworded with the two swords, but
they change.
Yeah, exactly. You have different chains. For example, just like a very crude example is that your 5 hit square chain, 5 times square, turns into 3 times with a normal sword. And as you said, you don't follow enemies on the launcher. A bunch of other stuff, and all of them have hold inputs. So every single attack you can do, you can hold individually. A bit reminiscent, I want to say, of the punchy weapons in DMC. But it's like, I would say so. Essentially, because you can, what I mean is all of them have hold versions. Every move does, but also every single hit of the 3 times square combo has a hold version. And it's pretty neat. It's you still have your base moveset, and I generally wouldn't say it's neutered. It has a few less moves than the original games. I will also challenge anyone listening to this to tell me what square, square, forward, square, square, triangle, triangle does in Ninja Gaiden. None of you know. So like a few they took out. There's a lot of this is like a general issue I have with the old games. It has a lot of fluff that you don't really need. There's a lot of very cool animations, but none of these are useful. You're never gonna do them. There's not a lot of reason to do a lot of these moves, essentially, and they took a bunch of them out. You still have your square. You know what? He plays a bit like in terms of input variety. His normal attacks are a bit like he's a Dynasty Warriors Origins character.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. I mean, if we had a nickel for every time in the last 2 years a mostly previously unknown protagonist that was introduced to a series and had operated in the shadows previously to this game, we'd have 2 nickels between Dynasty Warriors Origins and Ninja Gaiden 4.
Kind of strange. It's the same company. What do they know?
That's true too. And they both have the color scheme of monochrome as well.
What do they know that we don't?
So, and also red, because the what's it called?
Yeah,
the scarf, and they're both associated with birds, aren't they?
Is
the guy in Dynasty Warriors is associated with what? Like a bird? I forget which bird.
Maybe it's the same dude. They show him a picture and they're like, this is what you'd look like if you were Chinese. That's Yakumo.
They put a mask on the model and they just like slimmed him up a bit, and they were like, okay, that's Yakumo now. Actually,
we got our boy. But yeah, so every weapon we get, which there's a few of, pretty good number actually, pretty decent number, not less than 2, I should say, as in less than Ninja Gaiden 2, not less weapons than 2.
No.
But
less than 2, 1 weapon you get. Well, that's real.
Yeah, and they're all pretty unique, pretty cool actually. There's a few mainstays and a few not so much mainstays. The 4th weapon you get, the weird, which instantly you cannot get around this, but I instantly thought, is it like a bit like Pandora from DMC4?
Oh yeah, Pandora. Yeah. But it's called the Box of Death or the Kage.
Yeah, it's way different, but so yeah, like every weapon we get has its base moveset, which is relatively expansive. It's not like gigantic or anything, but it is pretty good. You have a lot of moves, not a lot of overlap, which I always appreciate. I'm always like, all right, I can do this or I can do this move, but they both do the same. So like, okay, that's nice, I guess. But
I always found myself like distinctly being like, well, I don't really want to use this weapon right now because I feel like having these functions from this other weapon are much better. Like the second weapon, you get the rapier, which also turns into a giant drill, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Like that weapon, the basic combo on it moves you forward like a lot.
Yeah.
And like with enemies that like run away from you a ton, I found that like super useful to like be able to like just do like a dodge jump into those abilities, and like because even if they like try and backdash a little bit, Korean backdash away from you, the rapier's combo will catch up to them quite well, as opposed to the swords or the staff or the Kage. I mean, the Kage obviously has the shurikens, which kind of invalidates this a little bit, but like the rapier having that ability and also delimbing people like pretty consistently.
They also give you the rapier right before they introduce a bunch of enemies that can stay away and dodge around. Wonder if that's on purpose. Game design.
How about that?
Pretty good. But yeah, you get the idea. Like it's a drill spear in Bloodraven form, and it's like this thrusting sword in normal form. So they are like always inspired by the original form, but they are quite different. The staff turns into a big ass hammer, which is a blunt weapon, I guess. Is the big.
I actually felt like that was like the outside of the obviously the Kage is great and like pretty darn creative. But I felt like having the staff turn into a hammer was just like just a stroke of awesomeness. Just like such a rule of cool, like amplified into something really functional. And the fact that has like the negative edge function on it, where like you'll hold down the button and then let go on impact.
Yeah.
It's sort of like it's like a reverse version of Nero's Exceed. It's or I guess it would actually also be pretty similar to like the Gilgamesh in DMC4.
Yeah, which has like just release frames.
Pretty dope. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, no, it's pretty cool. All of them are unique. Whereas like the first one is like a normal charge, which is also like the idea in terms of skill expression here is really when do you actually get to charge it? What kind of moves can you charge in what situations without getting whacked? Because things do be whacking quite hard in this game, I would say. I played it on normal and on my original playthrough. It has an easy difficulty as well, so just like a like a PSA, so to speak. If you want to play it and you think, oh well, I suck at action games, but I want to play them, just play on easy. It's fine. No one cares.
Yeah. Honestly, the only difference is, I mean, you can have an auto heal
and
or
auto
whatever.
dodge as well. I think
So there's a couple of things to note here too. Is that the auto dodge and the auto block, they will actually like just prioritize doing normal blocking, where in other situations, if you didn't have them turned on, you would be able to parry, which might inadvertently like make some bosses harder.
True.
Because I remember like testing this sort of thing, and against one of the bosses, I did it without the auto block on, and I could not parry her in the setups that I was doing, and then I should say I could parry her in the setups that I was doing, and then I turned it on, and all of a sudden it would just prioritize Yakumo blocking her instead of getting the parry. So the boss became slower as a result of that. So any speedrunner or potential speedrunners out there that if people tell you, oh, don't turn on auto dodge or auto block because it's dumb, well, actually just don't turn it on because it's slower. Or if you want to learn the game more, it's just not good. The auto heal is pretty cool. The big difference between hero and normal is that you just take less damage on hero, which is nice. It's also, again, pretty good for like starting to understand the game more, which is really the big, I think, appeal of this game. Is across the playthrough you will just get better, and especially if you decide to replay it, that's like really cool.
I replayed it on hard after pretty soon after, actually. Like I wasn't like, oh god, the game's over, I need to skip the credits and replay on hard, but I did restart it within the same hour, I want to say, when I checked how NG Plus works. Because it's a little confusingly worded, but you start a new game with your old save, and then you get to play hard mode on NG Plus. Very nice. Which I also finished, and I used the same save to start a Master Ninja, which is the highest difficulty, with fucking stupid name on the side note, which has been like a tradition of the series, and I'm always like, this is dumb. I started playthrough that
Master
one. It's
Ninja.
pretty hard. I have not finished that one yet. Not super far into it. But things do be too short in you.
I made it through like I made it through most of my hard mode playthrough, and like I didn't honestly notice like a ton of difference between that and normal, but also I think if I had jumped into that deep end like immediately, I'd have gotten crushed. So I think it is good to start on normal and then go through.
I always like in these games when they have like 4 or 5 difficulties, I like just working through them one by one and just getting better in the meantime. And also because they tend to have too many upgrades for one playthrough. So I also try to get all of those, unlock everything, so I can play the hardest difficulties with everything unlocked. And I still don't have max HP because I missed out on one NG Plus exclusive item because I'm stupid. But but yeah, you can play all of them in that order. You can play everything on easy mode if you so wish. Like the game isn't stopping you because Ninja Gaiden has this rep for being super hard. Just play on easy, you'll be fine. And just like a little intersection here, you should play it. It's pretty good. If you like action games, I think this is like
it's quite good.
There isn't too many of these very big, high-profile action games. I think if you're in touch with AA and especially indie, you'll always find something because there's always people out there thinking the same as you, and they can also make games. So if you are actually trying, you will not run out of action games to play. I mean, earlier this year, we, in terms of big production values, not quite on the same level, but still in like kind of the same vein, which you played, was Lost Soul Aside, which is also like it's got RPG elements, but it is like very much focused on this action, this fast action combat thing. Yeah, exactly.
And I will say that like when it comes to Lost Soul Aside, like as much as I enjoyed that game is like an RPG kind of at heart. And you can really tell that after like a little bit of time with it, and you can really tell the difference that like 20 years essentially makes in the industry. Because, I guess at this point, the people in Platinum probably have like 30 years, or probably a bunch of them anyway do, because the vision in Ninja Gaiden 4 is like the level of like quality in Ninja Gaiden 4 is much higher than Lost Soul Aside, even though the production values were probably pretty similar, if not maybe more, on Lost Soul Aside. But Ninja Gaiden 4, I mean, I really enjoyed Lost Soul Aside, and I probably played that game for like 60 hours or something, right? And I even did the first speedrun of it. But Ninja Gaiden 4 is just wow, man.
It's like way better. Yeah,
it's so fun.
Not better, but I mean
even getting into
that's not what I mean, because I didn't play Lost Soul Aside. But I mean, it's like very.
It's tight, man. It's just solid, like solid.
It's really
tight,
good.
right?
It has. It's not like, oh, this is the most expensive game ever made, but it is like it is a high budget game. This is like this isn't not even supposed to make fun of anything that's smaller, but there's a lot of action games. There isn't too many high budget action games, so getting one that actually feels really good to play and is just really fun is pretty neat.
Yeah, I mean, although I will get into like a little bit of the negatives here that we're talking about, because one thing that I will give, and this is related to Lost Soul Aside here, is that there's not a whole lot of filler sections in Lost Soul Aside. That game is long because there's a lot of game. There's a lot of combat that you can do. By comparison, I feel like some of the filler sections that happen in Ninja Gaiden 4, if we got rid of these, the game would probably have considerably. I mean, I think honestly, you could cut a level from each of these sections, and the game would be just totally fine. So basically, the way that the flow of Ninja Gaiden's story goes, for those that haven't played it, and the way that the missions go, is that Yakumo is tasked with defeating these demons at three different shrines in the game. And all of these shrines hold his weapons that he's going to get, as well as holding the soul of the Dark Dragon. So he goes through like 3 different locales, or 3 different biomes, if you will, if you've played Returnal, or most other games that use the word biome. And some of these sections go on for a while. Like there's points where you are like, where he falls off a bridge, and it's like, I guess we're just gonna go
back
on
up. Yeah, you know what it reminds me of?
Yeah, I guess we're gonna go.
It reminds me of a bunch of the levels in Gungrave Gore, where I think we have like 3 levels in this one biome essentially, or this area, and you could condense these into 1.5 levels essentially. Where nothing like the game actually introduces a pretty good amount of enemies, I think, but every now and then it just not a lot of new stuff gets shown. The environments are okay. There's some okay-ish secrets to find, but it's not really moving at that point, and which is strange, because the entire game is very fast and about moving forward, and then every now and then it has like these levels that are just, and this is gonna sound stupid because earlier on I said, hell yeah, I love playing the game, and I love when it just goes, oh yeah, play the game, but it has these aspects that are these levels that are just, oh, play the game, and I'm just like, this is fine, but this feels like filler essentially at times. Whereas there's plenty of I mean, like when I was playing the game casually, like I was just having such a blast that like I didn't care, like I'm going to, like, Yakumo falls off the bridge and I'm like, oh, it's going to take longer. Heck yeah. I get to fight more stuff, but like on repeat playthroughs, you kind of like you said, you realize that like the game does a very good job of like tutorializing itself, I think, and introducing you to a lot of these systems outside of like some fringe cases where some things in tutorial text could be explained better. But it does a good job of like pacing itself and introducing like the different aspects of the platforming and everything to you. But so like Yakumo gets these ninja gear things like the glider and the grapple.
And it always feels like they give you like, they're like, okay, this is the level where you'll get it, and then you'll use it for a couple of levels. And because like nothing really happens on the narrative front or in the way of you getting gear on some of the levels that it happens, it's like, I don't know if we need to do all this, guys. Like, I mean, quite notably, right, what is called Chapter 3, but is actually the fourth chapter.
Yeah,
in
that
the
one
game,
was the one I was thinking of too.
is actually like, it is like extremely short. Like even casually, right? Like there's probably, like, not counting the side content, because there is quite a bit of side content, which we'll get into in a little bit, which I think is one of the strongest aspects of this game in terms of a modern action game release. But like you can clear that level, from a fresh file in like 4 minutes, which is in stark contrast to some of the other levels that go on for like 7 or 10. And that's even just blazing through them. Like there's just considerably less to the fourth chapter, because it's like, well, okay, now we can wrap up the chapter, but you could have just wrapped it up in the previous mission. And just eliminated part of that mission's fluff. So it's especially apparent in the DDO's base, the Dragon's Maw chapter specifically, which is the what is called Chapter 12, but is really the 13th chapter. Truly unlucky number 13.
Wanted to avoid it.
In spirit, because that level, even when you are skipping all of like the unintended fights, or all of the fights that you don't have to do, that level can still go on for like 20 minutes.
And this is like we should say is when you're actually trying to speed through it, which is pretty long for
when you're trying to speed through it.
Mission.
Pretty long for a speed
I think
run.
The entire game.
I have seen people. Well, I was gonna say I have seen people playing that level casually. There was like a buddy that booted up stream, and he was like, all right, time to play Ninja Gaiden 4. An hour later, he is still in Chapter 12.
It's a bit like a Doom Eternal level.
Good grief. Yeah, for real.
I think the game actually has a pretty decent length. Yeah,
it's like 10 hours if you just blaze through it.
I think like action games tend to have the problem that they're either too long or too short. Or like a lot of games in general, I should say. Not really an action game exclusive problem. But because on the one hand, you kind of want me to see some stuff, but also then you might run into this problem, which, like, I get it. You don't want people to go, oh, you can clear this game in 6 hours. But every now and then I still think this is like, we could have cut this one mission. The one I think of in Ninja Gaiden 4 is after the first proper boss, when you get into this valley and you get the glider. And it's like, that's like 3 missions in total. I don't know, and this could have been 2 or even less. Maybe it's very strange.
It's like missions 5 through 7. Are the valley, and I thought that you could have done that in 2, especially because again, on mission, what is mission 7, but also it's kind of mission 8 proper. It is just 2 bosses. Like you do 2 grapple points into a glider thing, and then there you are at the boss fight. And one of those boss fights is a force fail. So it's really just one boss fight. And I'm like, guys, I think we could have just, trimmed this a little. Interestingly enough, in one of the YouTube shorts that I saw, and I have to kind of like be pretty careful about watching Ninja Gaiden 4 YouTube shorts, because if I watch the wrong ones, then YouTube's going to assume I hate the game and just feed me like everybody's opinion. But there was a panel of like 3 guys, because every dude has a podcast now.
Quad era demonstrandum.
That was like, right, and but like 2 guys were like, oh yeah, no, I really thought this game was good. And one of the guys said, I had a good time with it, but if it was like only 7 hours, I would have had a really good time with it. And I thought that was like really interesting to hear from a purely casual perspective, because I feel like a lot of the time we hear people wanting more from that first playthrough. So it was interesting that it even wore on this person a little bit in terms of the run length. Even again, like I had a blast. I didn't really care that it was like 10 hours. It took me like 13 hours because I was doing side content. But, you know, in the back of my mind, I'm like, ooh, this run's about to be pretty long too. You know?
Yeah, no, it's not a short game, and you do go through a bunch of stuff. I mean, for first playthrough, again, I get it. You don't want people to say this can be finished so quickly, because a lot of people tend to make fun of that. But also, there is definitely the other perspective, which is, well, the game does have a lot of optional battle content, I should say, so to speak. After you finish the game, it encourages you to play a lot more. So the first playthrough, to me personally, isn't that important. Like, it should be good, of course. I'm not saying
it's mostly a tutorial. It's mostly a tutorial.
Yeah, exactly.
Though.
And I'm already on board anyway, so I get it. You also want to convince people that this is a good game who are gonna drop it after the first playthrough, probably, which is fair enough. But personally, for an action game, I always think the replay value is should be strong, and I think making the game too long and having sections that just kind of drag and feel a bit superfluous isn't really for replays, just kind of annoying. Especially the game has a bunch of other issues with that, which is because they
well, I guess we can
we kind of need to.
But I will say I will say, like, you know, as much as we say, oh well, people care about this, also DMC5 exists, and that game is like 7 to 8 hours, and I have not heard a single person say that game is too short.
No, for sure. That's
so it's like there are, if you are just that good, then people will simply ignore it in favor of being like, yeah, this game is really
you want people to just have a blast in the moment. And sometimes I think having sections that are too long, like this person you quoted, I totally get that sentiment. You're like, well, I could have done with like 2 hours less or so. I totally get that.
Yeah. So the stuff that does drag on, this is actually related to like the Ninja gear that I was talking about. And I think that because I talk a lot about like characterization through mechanics or vice versa, mechanics that are informed by characterization. And I think that this Ninja gear stuff is to demonstrate, along with how many weapons Yakumo gets, it's to demonstrate his prowess in battle and like his ability to use pretty much whatever he is given. You know, this is just due to his experience, right? Again, as you were saying, he's not a Nero. He's not like this hot-blooded protagonist that's like kind of in over his head. Like, no, Yakumo's a pro, and he knows how to use all this stuff. And he knows how to like just naturally like grind on rails, like he's from Ratchet.
I don't know why he can do this, but it's funny. So
it's funny, and like when I was going through the first time, I was like pretty enamored by some of the spectacle.
Yeah, it looks good.
You know, but I also realized, like on repeat playthroughs, I'm like, if you literally just mash R1 during these, then you will make it through, you know? And they go on for like minutes at a time. And I thought that they would have something like a chapter challenge mode akin to Razor's Edge, where it actually eliminates a lot of this stuff and it makes these repeat playthroughs a little more digestible. But there's a lot of just like gliding from platform to platform or rail grinding from platform to platform. If the rail grinding were relegated to how they used it in the forest, which is it essentially becomes an alternate version of wall running, because you'll grind a rail for like 2 seconds and then be on another platform, I would have been totally okay with it. And I think that's actually an interesting way to like vary up your platforming between like wall running and rail grinding, as well as the wire grapple. If you have like if you're allowing the person to like press buttons, even if it's the same button, pretty enough, it's still engaging to an extent, especially if they're doing some extra platforming with it. But like there's parts where you just sort of sit there on a rail and dodge trains for like 3 minutes, bro. And I'm like, I think I could have done without this, actually.
Especially on replays.
You know.
That's the stuff I mean when I say this should have been cut for the sake of replays, or at least cut it within replays. Where on the first playthrough, at times I was actually thinking, well, I'm just mashing R1 right now, really, to get past this. And this, I don't really care because it's never that long, but especially for the grappling parts, I'm like, this is barely even gameplay. This is like an interactive cutscene with, it's like a slow time event instead of a quick time event. But I have a lot of time.
It'd be one thing,
but
it'd be one thing, right? If Yakumo carried momentum out of the wire grapple, but like you can't even flying swallow.
Yeah, it's like very
grapple.
scripted platforming.
Trust me, I've tried. Yeah, like, because I tried to do a wire grapple and then do a flying swallow at an enemy on the other side, and Yakumo just
into the ground,
stabbed his swords into the void.
Aww.
And I was like, oh, well, dang it.
He left the platforming dimension. And the as you said, chapter challenge in 3 Razor's Edge was really cool because it just cut some of the fluff, which is fine on the first playthrough. Like all of the grinding on the first playthrough, it already has you, if you've played a bunch of games, already has you thinking like, oh, I get it. It's like a bit like Sonic, I guess, but less freeform. A bit like Ratchet and Clank, and you're just kind of
definitely a lot more like
you're just kind of going through it, and you're like, yeah, this is fine. I don't really have an issue with it, but it is a bit of Simon Says-y because it's like, well, you jump, you duck, or you leave the rail. But it keeps you entertained. It looks nice, especially when the rails start deforming. That's neat.
Yeah, it does look nice.
And
it's pretty okay. But I will say that like a lot of the areas in the game, I will say they all have very distinct identities. Like there is not a point where you're gonna think during this game, oh, this looks all the same.
Yeah, like you return to the base you're at the start later on, and naturally that one looks the same, but like overall it is a pretty I say this, I'm like a little this like an aesthetic that a bunch of modern games, or quote unquote modern, it's been a while, have, which is like this cyber ninja aesthetic, which I'm not the biggest fan of, like this cyber Japan, you know what I mean? Like I'm not like big on it, but I think it looks good in this game. I do like the game's vibes overall. I think just like running through the levels and beating up dudes is pretty, like, obviously it plays well, but I think it feels nice to walk through it. I think it's got a good aesthetic personally.
I think a lot of that aesthetic really comes like in tandem with like the like techwear fashion, that sort of thing, which like I'm a pretty big fan of in general, like having like random like straps or like, you know, nonsense text on the clothing and everything like that. And Yakumo's outfit definitely seems like it's also cut from that same cloth. So seeing that sort of like, I don't want to call it a trend, but it is a trend. Seeing some of that trend like be pretty straight-laced and taken, you know, for what it is, which is very like cyberpunky, very dystopia kind of thing going on, but also pretty fashionable, pretty rule of cool looking in terms of fashion goes. Seeing that inform at least the first area of the game was pretty neat. And then it's like you go into the very traditional forest area, which is pretty reminiscent of the early games. So you see this very stark contrast in the environments right from jump. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
And then a bunch of levels that change. It has a bunch of biomes, as you said. We don't need to get into all of them because I don't really want like the dedicated spoiler section for Ninja Gaiden 4. We don't need to like go through the entire game note by note, but there's a bunch of cool environments in here, even if none of them are like, wow, I've never seen that before, but it does look good. It's got like a good art direction, I want to say. Nothing like super unique, but it does look nice.
It's definitely does not, I mean, like, again, not to jab at Lost Soul side, but there are a lot of like places in Lost Soul side where I'm like, this looks pretty, but it also looks
Yeah, it looks kind of. Oh, you made this because it looked cool on the concept art kind of deal.
Yeah, I will say that like in Lost Soul Aside, you can look out at like any vista in that game and be like blown away. But it does have like just a very like ultra realistic art style. Whereas I mean, obviously animified a little bit. But Ninja Gaiden 4 definitely has that like gritty art style that, you know, the later games at least are known for. Ninja Gaiden Black,
yeah, it's a little
much,
always,
but Ninja
take
Gaiden
a bit more continuity.
Ninja Gaiden 2 definitely like dips its toes in that aesthetic a little bit, and then like by Ninja Gaiden 3 they're really like
and we already had like the cyber stuff in 2 as well, with like the big ass plane and whatnot.
Yes.
And the robots.
Oh yeah.
So it's never been like, this isn't a departure, I want to say. It's more like, and I also don't want to say evolution, because evolution kind of has this demeaning tone in terms of the prior stuff, which I don't mean to say actually in this regard anyway. In a lot of other regards,
it is very much. It is,
but
it is dialing it up.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of like, I'd say inevitably like there are comparisons to media that, you know, like somebody new kind of takes up the mantle of like being the main focus. So like in that regard, it's more like a Batman Beyond type deal, right? Where obviously Yakumo and Terry are not cut from the same cloth in terms of characterization, but Batman Beyond takes a lot of those like gritty aesthetics and the like the very dark tones of the original Batman series, and then dials them like up with future tones on them. You know, the aesthetic of Batman Beyond, I would not think that anybody would say that was out of the blue for a Batman show. You could very well put Bruce Wayne as the focus of that show, and it would still be pretty on the nose. And like when you actually get to play as Ryu in this game, he doesn't look out of place.
For sure. He's like a bit redesigned. He looks like a bit more modern, but it is very clearly
a little bit. Yeah, I mean the sheath for his sword is definitely
we had
more
that one
techy,
lying around from Metal Gear Rising too. I kept thinking, it's right.
That's what it reminded me of. I couldn't decide.
It looks super much like
Ninja Gaiden, truly.
That's a good one. Yeah, like that. Like the entire thing is like a little more modern, but as you said, not out of the blue. 2 and especially 3, you were already going there. And I don't actually think it's a bad aesthetic. I always thought like this. I do actually like 2s and 3 aesthetic. It's 2s and 3 aesthetics. Jesus, quite a lot.
Yeah,
they are pretty cool. I think these games look good, even though sometimes 2 is like, oh, now you fight a skeleton dragon for some reason. Nah, whatever, man.
Now you fight the Statue of Liberty, I guess.
2 black, by the way, because it was fucking dumb. They cut it because of the elections. They couldn't afford it anymore.
Oh, God. They were like, man, players are enjoying this fight a little bit too much. What's going on here?
That fight sucks, by the way. You guys, if you just play 2 black, you guys should be happy that you do not have to fight the Statue of Liberty.
For real.
And this is actually a cool segue into something I want to talk about with 4, which is boss fights.
Ooh.
I am a gigantic hater of Ninja Gaiden 2 boss fights. I think 99% of them are completely awful, and they make me want to uninstall at times. Some of them are hard, some of them are very easy. I remember replaying, because I was playing 2 black with a copy provided by Koei Tecmo to the public service announcement. I was just replaying it, and I got to the final boss, and I was like, this boss is piss easy, which is good because it is really, really bad. I was like, this is one of the worst bosses in one of these big games I've ever fought. Not like the worst boss overall. You can just play some random indie crap where the guy does not understand what a video game is if you want a bad boss.
Magic Sword or whatever it is.
I don't know. There's like a lot of games with a lot of bad bosses. This isn't on that level, but within these high-profile action games, I'm like, oh yeah, this is terrible. I have no idea what they were thinking with this. And
pretty bad.
There is 1 or 2 things in Ninja Gaiden 4 where at some points I thought this is terrible, but then afterwards when I beat it, and I had like this thing where I was like, yeah, actually that was pretty good. That was fun. I enjoyed that one.
Yeah, no, it's weird. Like I remember fighting there was a lot of bosses where I had to fight them multiple times, and I kind of went in with like the mentality of like all of this stuff looks foreign to me right now, you know, and I need to just like give it some time for what's happening on the screen to click. In the same way that like when you first fight against another character in a fighting game, everything just looks Greek to you, you know, like it's just like they're just swinging, man. And then you have to like once you sift through the information that's on screen, it's like, okay, now I understand what's going on, you know, like when I was routing the game, I was like, man, I fucking suck, bro. Like, and I was like struggling pretty hard, and I had to just sit down with a lot of these bosses and use some of like the post-game content to really sift through what I could do to them and understand like the flow of how, like, not only how the game wanted me to approach them, but how I could like bend what the game wanted me to, how the game wanted to like me to approach them. And so I think the game is very good at like giving you easy ways to retry these things. And I mean, you can always use items as well to get through it, right? But I generally thought that by and large, a lot of the boss fights in this game were really enjoyable.
I think so too.
I do think there's a little bit of a misstep in tutorializing itself, where I felt like they should have swapped the first and second bosses of the game, but I think they had that first boss where it is because they wanted a stronger start to the game as well.
It's like big samurai fight. That's the one you mean, right? Yeah.
Yeah, big samurai fight. Yeah, it's the one that's in a lot of like the promotional material. Yeah, and I think that, I mean, number one, it's probably because like that's a little more hype than fighting the big dude with the hammer that looks like a, you know, like one of the hogs from RE4 or RE4 remake, you know. It basically just looks like a mechanized giant version of that. That's a little bit more hype for the true. But it's a stronger start in that regard. And also, like, they had the Victor Borda song that they were promoting pretty heavily in the promotional material, and I think that they just didn't want people to have to they want like when we think back to Metal Gear Rising, for example, which is known for this big all-out start where you fight Ray and then really over
Rules
the
of
top,
Nature plays, and this is like something that people still say like, oh yeah, this is like one of the coolest hooks where you're just like, oh yeah, I get it, I want to play more of this.
Oh yeah.
And I think this is trying to go into that direction, which is kind of funny because Ninja Gaiden 4 is very scared of being hands off, like taking away your control, which I think is good.
Yeah.
But it also makes it so you can't do Metal Gear Ray from Metal Gear Rising. This doesn't quite work anymore.
Yeah.
So
it's, I mean, like, to 2 points there, right? So number one, you get this form called Berserk, which is like the one-hit kill mode. And I do find it a little weird that like they give you the Berserk during the first level, but they don't give you the finisher for it until a mission later, you know. And I think that's part of like why I think these sections were just swapped around, is because it would make sense to introduce you to that form and then give you the finisher for it in the final fight of that chapter. And then it's like, okay, now you can just move along and like now we can get through this other part. But also one of the boss fights that is like the rival fight is essentially the Jetstream Sam of the game. There's a big point where like there's this revelation about his character, and it sort of just like happens during his face
there's like
change.
No cutscene or anything.
But there's no cutscene for it because, as you were saying, the game doesn't want to take the control away from you. But also, this is a pretty big revelation about him that happens, and it really changes the dynamics of the fight. So I remember when it first happened, I was like, huh? Well, why does whole moveset change, you know? Because when you fight one of the other bosses and they go through a phase change, they might get like
they get a
one
bunch
new
of new
attack
stuff,
or whatever. But this guy's whole moveset changes, you know? But it's like, what the? And there's even, it's weird too, because in the forest level, there's a boss where you beat the first phase, it disappears, and then it has a cutscene, and then you fight the second phase. And it's like, why couldn't we just?
Yeah, I feel like they should have done that here
for this boss
for that one in particular. Because again, like I get what they are doing. I get there's like an echo of Metal Gear Rising in the background, essentially, in terms of these. You want like the same kind of hype, essentially, because when you fight Ray or when you fight literally any boss in Rising, doesn't really matter. They all have cool stuff going on during the fight, but there is a lot of the game taking control away from you during the fights, which doesn't really matter because it looks super cool during that time. But
it does.
Ninja Gaiden 4 is not really going for that, which I do actually like, but it does result in this moment, as you said, they fall like a little flat, like that one guy where something about him changes, bigger revelation, but you don't really see it, because it is within the context of him face changing, which is just him going to the middle of the arena and doing a charge up, and then bam, second phase, which is cool. I don't really mind that. I think that's good. But it's like... I don't know. I think for some bosses you can just have a cutscene in the middle. That's fine. But I get it. I think it's a cool thing to actually commit to, where you're like, all right, we are just not gonna do this except when they want to do it. But that's fine. You get one. but generally,
here's the thing, right? Is like, if you're gonna do it once, do it on like the big fight, not the random like statue in the forest area that like just is like a I don't know. When you can fight that boss later in like the challenges, it skips this whole cutscene. It just kind of phase changes, and it's like, you could have just done this, and it's like, all right.
But as I said, it results in these moments falling a bit flat, but it also results in the game being you are in control during the phase changes. I think that's cool. I don't think you need like to empty the HP bar and then get a cutscene and then get to the next HP bar every single time in every game. This is good that this is like a thing that people complained about in the base game for Lies of P a lot, which I also where I have like a similar approach to bosses where as in Ninja Gaiden 4, where I start the boss fight and I wail on it, and then I just die, and I'm like, that's stupid, I'm gonna do that again though. Just die again, and I'm like, wait, maybe I should try blocking and dodging, and suddenly the boss is like so much clearer, and for some reason this has happened in both games, and especially in Ninja Gaiden 4, where I'm just like, what the fuck? What was that? What hit me? And then I'm like, oh, you can block it. Yeah, right. Maybe I should try.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no. Maybe I should use the mechanics that the game has explained to me.
There's a lot of stuff. Also, something, speaking of those, doing bosses, something I actually really like is how the parry works in this. Because well, I'm like a gigantic fan of Sekiro, but I think I also don't want to have to parry 10 hit chains in every single game ever. We just had E33, which also has that. Just had the Lies of PDSC, which also has that. And Ninja Gaiden 4 does the cool thing: if you parry an attack doing a chain, the boss just stops. Like the chain stops, and you get to do a counter, or in some specific cases, maybe they get to do something. That's actually interesting. I like that a lot more because not like in general, but for this type of game, because the entire thing it's like very fast paced, and I think having to parry like longer chains is kind of annoying because it puts me at like the pace of the game instead of the pace I try to make.
Yeah.
Which is good for other games, but not for this. So in this, it's actually really smart that they were like, oh yeah, you can parry, but if you parry, the chain just gets interrupted. And you can do your counter.
Yeah, I mean, There are some like multi-phase attacks too that when you parry even just one of the phases of that, it will just like, and I'm not even talking about like you were talking about like strings, right? For example, but even for example, the statue boss has a move where it will like throw some blades at you and then have some blades like jam into the ground and then throw more blades at you. If you parry one part of that, the boss will just revert to its default. And it'll just stop that entirely. So this is not even related to like a boss doing like a 3-hit combo. This is like you will just stop that entire like chain.
It's really good.
Entirely.
It's like a very it's like putting a lot more of the agenda into my hands, which for this game in particular again is good because it is, and I don't mean it's about like senselessly pressing buttons, but it is generally about trying to make your own tempo. Whereas, like, I am at the mercy of the game if I fight Sekiro's final boss, which is also good. But in this case, they kind of understood that what they need to do is not make me parry chains. They need to make me dictate the pace of the fight, essentially, or like at least not really let me do that by default, but like give me the possibility to do it with this is gonna sound a bit weird, but like by playing skillfully, so to speak. So I get the option to play better and thus make the fight adhere to my own pace rather than vice versa.
Yeah, I'd say like instead of like skillfully, what you probably mean is like you're playing with intentionality. Right. And I mean, this is something that we talked about in the Dynasty Warriors Origins episode where people were like, oh, well, this parry in Dynasty Warriors Origins is a bad parry because they're used to parries being this like purely defensive or purely like reactive rhythm based thing, but the parry in Dynasty Warriors Origins is quite offensive. And in the way that like in this game it is quite offensive, where you are using it to regain your turn. It is not to simply like it is not simply to stop the turn of the boss or to like negate the boss's turn, or I guess match what the boss is trying to do. It is like you are taking your turn back here. The perfect block as well, you kind of do this where you can just
but
stop
works on
the
both
boss's turn.
Depending on which. I usually do the perfect block because it's easier to make and risk free, because if you press a bit too early then nothing really happens, you just block.
Yeah, we might be getting like a little bit too into the weeds with me saying this, but like on one of the bosses when she does like her sweeping combo, if you like perfect dodge into an attack, you will like parry her every time. And then you can like just do one of like the really big skills to her to take back to the pace of the fight. But that's like something that I had to like lab out and figure out too. That's not like something that's going to immediately be
I think
apparent.
something really interesting is also the game has this is another trend that I've seen since Sekiro, and I think a lot of games fuck it up and this game doesn't, which is now that this isn't invented by Sekiro, don't get me wrong. Again, this is like the influence doesn't have to come from the one who invented it. So essentially what I mean. But a lot of games, including Neo 2 actually, after that have these very specific unblockables with very specific counters. Like obviously games have had unblockable attacks before Sekiro. I'm not stupid. But a lot of them are like clearly inspired by it is what I mean. A lot of games afterwards. And Ninja Gaiden, I like them in Neo 2, by the way. I think they're done very well in that game. But Ninja Gaiden 4 has these, they're not outright unblockable. Yeah, exactly. You can block them for chip, or you can block them using your Blood Raven Gorge, and that actually just blocks them normally, but it does take up your bar. But the more interesting option is you can attack into them with a Blood Raven form attack on any weapon, doesn't matter which one. As long as you have a Blood Raven attack, it will interrupt it. And this is what you were getting into, the turn-taking stuff. Like, not taking turns, but taking the boss's turn. The boss, after all of the valet stuff, the weird griffin guy, I don't think this is, like, getting too spoilery. It's like a bird creature thingy. Has a lot of chains that end in one of these attacks that you can interrupt. And that's kind of what I mean, where if when you just play it and you see it, you're probably gonna try to dodge that one. When you do the boss a bit more, you will figure out when can you actually interrupt these, and like there's like weapons that are less reliable at interrupting some of them because the boss is like a little backdash and then comes forward with the attack. So your standard square Blood Raven attack might just miss it depending on what weapon you're using. So once you like get into this and you try to experiment a little, it has like multiple chains where I'm just like, all right, I'm just gonna block everything, and then if I have the gauge, I will interrupt it at the end. And if I don't have any of it, I will try to parry to get it out of this chain essentially. But what I don't have to do is just block there and wait, and then be like, oh well, I can't punish this because it's a big attack and I didn't do like whatever correctly. There's a lot of I want to say agenda put into my own hands. I get to. I get to press like a lot of buttons during fights, which is good, but I get to do this like very with intent, as you said earlier. I get to decide when to interrupt this. You can even just block it. You can perfect dodge the red attacks too. So this isn't the game going, oh, you have to interrupt these. But for a lot of them, you can just figure out your own solution, and I always appreciate. That.
Go ahead. Yeah, I was gonna say like another like somebody that I was watching play the game casually that I know. He like started because I had introduced him to the phrase Simon Says, and then he's like used it hyperbolically a little bit too much since then. But he like when the power attacks would show up, he'd be like, "Oh, I hate Simon Says." I'm like, "Well, you do understand. Like, what you have to understand is that this is not the game telling you go into Blood Raven form and interrupt the boss's attack. It is telling you have a few different options here." You know, what we're telling you that you can do is that you can interrupt it with Blood Raven form, or you can block it with Blood Raven, or you can perfect dodge, or you can do something else. But like the idea is just to clue you in of this is like the flow of this boss, because this is the thing too, right? Is if bosses did not have this indicator on them, because they do turn black and red when they do the power attacks. If they didn't have this indicator, it would be a disservice to the player that's trying to like play the game for the first time, or like even just trying to learn. Because when, you know, like I said it earlier, like when you see a string for the first few times, even like in even simple strings, right, against one of the bosses who just has like these sweeping attacks, it can be hard to sift through some of this visual information. And when everything just looks the same, even if it's like, or if it looks visually similar, even if there's a wind up on it, then it cannot be as clear where it is your time to like act, or where it is your time to try and like explore your options for dealing with what the boss is throwing at you. So having this like very clear like point of contention for the player to be like, okay, now I am going to, this is where I can take my turn back, and this is like the moment in this fight where I can work around like my game plan. I think that's very important.
And I do like how the game lets you kind of decide when exactly your point is. So for example, it's like a 3-hit or 4-hit chain, and the last attack is one of these red attacks. You can still parry the first one just fine, and it will interrupt the chain. Yeah. So the game isn't going, oh well, you have to wait for this and then interrupt it. No, that's not how it works. There's a lot of your own intention in there. Essentially, you get to play a lot of these bosses the way you want them to play. One or two are a little special, I want to say, very nicely. But generally speaking, I think the bosses are pretty fun. Which is a big compliment for a Ninja Gaiden game, because I hate like almost every boss.
There's a couple of. There's a couple of bosses, too, that I felt were, like, really, really fun and, like, on par with, like, some of the DMC bosses. And, you know, I didn't really think that I would have said that for a lot of Ninja Gaiden like, any Ninja Gaiden bosses, really, outside of maybe the first boss in
Black
Ninja
has
Gaiden
a bunch of decent ones, but that game's just a little more down-to-earth in general, so... Yeah.
It's true, yeah. Or the Regions of the Mask as well in Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge. I generally
honestly.
enjoyed his fights. I mean, he gets destroyed by Scythe 360 like every other boss in that game.
What about the blind T-Rex?
Which, oh man, dude. I forgot to mention this about the Razor's Edge 3 thing that I did. And this is how you can tell that like this game is like Ninja Gaiden 4 is just designed better than Razor's Edge 3, like because the whole game does not fall apart to one attack. In Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge, famously, there's a move where you spin the stick with the scythe and then hit the heavy button, and Ryu will like almost immediately delimb any like minor enemy and just kill them immediately. And any bosses, it just seems to break their AI, and they just take tons and tons of damage for it. There's like nothing they can do about this move. So like the game seems hard until you discover this one move, and like of course you can be like, play less boring, but also
it's a balance issue.
I'd like not just one move to I'd like for not just one move to break the game. I will say, in the moment that I had wrongfully decided to speedrun the game without much routing knowledge, eventually deciding to fall back on that move was quite good and helped me get enough sleep that night. Otherwise, I would have been there for much longer. So there is that.
You know, I'm like, because you got very briefly into the story earlier, and originally I was thinking we should talk about the story at some point, but it's not really. There's like nothing here really, which is also something worth talking about. Like the story
I do want to talk about a couple of things.
As you said, we have like the very, very, very quick. First of all, he's like, "Oh, we're gonna kill the priestess for the evil dragon." Blah blah blah. Then he finds out that's not the deal, and then we get the main quest of we need to kill the shrine guardians to summon the dragon, so that way we can actually defeat it. That's like the story setup essentially. Yeah, and we got like our squad on comms.
Yeah.
Which is a total of 4 characters.
Misaki, Umi,
Umi, who does not have a model, by the way,
Sayori.
and Sayori, who is the priestess. Very Ninja Gaiden looking design. That's like if you ever think, well, I wonder which part of this game is done by Platinum and which game is done by Team Ninja. For this one, you're not wondering about it. I'm just gonna, it's like funnier when people just look it up. Just look up what Sayori from Ninja Gaiden 4 looks like.
Yeah, there's a couple of jokes that I could make, but let's just say I don't want to twist the knot a little bit here. I don't want to. Yeah, no. So I mean, number one, what I do want to say, some final points on Yakumo. First of all, right, is that we talked about Nero a little bit, and I think that the way that they characterize Yakumo through like the amount of weapons that he gets is really cool, because with Nero it's very clear that the reason that like he and Dante are going ahead, like are able to go head to head, is because Nero like has these weapons that are tailor made for him, and he has like this extra like demon arm thing going on too. You know, he has some like advantage a little bit there. But the way that Dante is characterized as like the guy is by how many things he gets, and how he can use
like the first cutscene is literally and there's this very like, he has me using it proficiently.
And there's this really interesting reversal of that paradigm where for Yakumo it is, this is everything that I need to be on Ryu's level. You know, and all Ryu needs to bust my ass is the dragon sword. And it's a very interesting like take on minimalist arsenal versus like, whereas you would think that the new character, they would have you take the same approach as like Ryu or as Nero, right? Where he's got like those couple of weapons for him, but it's like this guy's not new. He's just not up to Ryu's level. So in order to fight him, he needs to, or in order to be on his level and like fulfill the story, like the plot of the story, he needs all these tools. But Ryu just shows up and he's just that dude. The game goes to like pretty decent lengths, I think, for whatever reason, people don't seem to think this, but like the game goes to pretty decent lengths to establish that Ryu is like clearly superior.
Times.
Ryu is the stuff of legend.
The Ninja Gaiden games,
And,
which I always thought is like a little cheesy, but that's fine because it is in line. They always refer to him as the Super Ninja.
Yeah, it's totally okay.
And like, yeah, that's kind of his deal. Like he is the Super Ninja.
Absolutely.
That's who he is. And Yakumo is not the Super Ninja.
No,
yeah,
he's like a veteran.
I
but
think
he's not the guy.
Something they got right with Yakumo as a new character, which is everyone like again, I'm not like super. I don't think the Ninja Gaiden story is very good, but I think generally it is tonally very consistent. And there's a lot of consistent things that I actually do like. And there's this one thing specifically with Yakumo, which I think is super in line with the original games, which is that everyone who fights in these games is hyper capable at fighting. And everyone who doesn't fight is a gigantic bumbling idiot. And who like trips over there. Yeah, exactly. And he's like, he does some important things, but he's like, like you could just whack him and he'd probably just fall apart. But everyone who is like actually who does fight is incredibly good at fighting. And of course, there's Ryu, who's just the best one. But there's like a thing with Yakumo being like just kind of getting his ass beat by random dudes, like how Nero gets hit a lot during cutscenes early on. Not even like he's not getting his ass beat, but like he is taking hits. Essentially, is what I mean. He is not perfecting these guys. Yeah,
he's not impervious.
Not that Yakumo is, but he is really good at what he does, and I think that this is like a thing that everyone in Ninja Gaiden who gets fight scenes does. You get this with like Ayane, who's like in Ninja Gaiden 2, and I think in 1 and 3 as well does actually fight. Yeah, but right, she's not one. But no, wait, she is. She leaves. Doesn't she leave behind the kunai? Yeah. I forgot.
I thought she was. Well, I thought that only Rachel. I thought that Rachel was only playable
she's in Sigma, but yeah,
Sigma.
Right. You're correct. But like these characters are really good at fighting, and they will beat people up like really hard. And they didn't go, oh, this is Yakumo, he's still training. No. He's really good. He's just not Ryu, essentially, which is like the man.
Yeah, essentially. And there's even some like very like again like it's like minimalism characterization, but it is there like where you see that like, and this is interesting to think about like in terms of social media where like people are comparing the wall climbing like animations for Yakumo and Ryu, and I thought it was interesting because like Yakumo does like a bunch of extra flips because he's just such like an aggressive like spry ninja, you know, like he's very like not brash or anything, but he's very just focused and aggressive, and it's reflected in a lot of his animations being so over the top. Whereas Ryu is, you know, again, the stuff of legend, and his wall run or his wall climbs, he does like a minimal amount of flips to get to the top. And people took this as like, you know, oh, who does it better? And everybody's like, oh, well, Ryu's expending less energy, you know, or whatever. But it's like, I mean, this is also to show that like Ryu is just a much more graceful character, you know, and he's a much more like at peace character. He is the super ninja for a reason, whereas Yakumo is just a very highly trained ninja who has a lot of experience still. Obviously, he's not going to be like, he's not out of breath when he gets to the top of these wall climbs. Let's not, you know, make any sort of assumptions like about his breathing
He still
control,
doesn't own ladders at home. He only owns like these two walls that are next to each other. So if he needs to get up anywhere, he just places those. But
but it's a very interesting, like there's some not so subtle and subtle differences in their animations that like make it clear that Ryu is just on like another level, even though
essentially. So like that is like clearly the intention, and I think they actually do this pretty well. Whereas like a lot of the direct dialogue in the story is kind of whatever. What they do within like the framework of an action game that they're doing is actually pretty interesting. I think that's neat.
And it is like, It is like indirect sort of again, it's like a big paradigm shift from a game like DMC where like we learn a lot about the characters from like the writing, or at least more than this game, you know, and the mechanics that they have are informed by that characterization. This is really the same way with like Clive in Final Fantasy 16. We learn a lot about Clive as a person, and then the way that he fights reflects that. In the reverse for Ninja Gaiden, we learn how they fight, and then that's how we learn more about them. Because the dialogue, by comparison, is pretty minimalist, as you said. You know, it's pretty just kind of, it's there to like move the plot forward.
Sometimes having a little banter on comms, but...
I like the banter a lot in this game. That was like one of the highlights for me was, I mean, I've heard that the people don't like the English dub very much, and I get that, you know, but it is just, it's funny to just hear the very like sassy back and forth between Sayori and Umi, and Misaki just chiming in with like his like actually type stuff going on. So it's like they're cheesy characters, but there is some charm to it. I was digging it.
I haven't played the dub, so I can't actually talk about that. But the big problem I have with the Japanese version is that they talk a lot during combat and traverse the sections. And I'm like, oh god, where do I look? Oh my god, game, calm down. And like,
I don't have time to read.
Some bosses, they have like fucking 5 lines between each other at the start of the boss, and I'm just like, well, I can read these when I die, I guess. Like I know what openers the boss can do, and then I can read it, because no way you're reading that while the boss is trying to kill you.
No.
But like,
definitely
the story is fine. It's a bit whatever. The characters are fine. I think Sayori is the strongest character out of these, because in Japanese, because she's like a little bit like, first of all, you're like, it's a shrine maiden. Now she's like a bit more like Aerith, I guess, from FF7. Where like, it's like the nice girl, and then she does kind of like play little pranks and that kind of stuff. So it's like entertaining is the correct word, I think. This isn't like, we're not putting good stories into Ninja Gaiden. Don't you guys worry, that's not happening anytime soon.
No, definitely not.
It's like this sounds like a bit, again. This sounds like a bit too much, but like it is good enough, so to speak. We are not doing DMC5 Nero here. That's like, or DMC3 Dante. That's not what's happening here. But we do have a decent-ish. It's decent enough, essentially, for an action game, story and writing wise. It never makes me think, oh god, this is fucking stupid. Which my closest point of comparison when I think of, oh god, this action game is getting fucking stupid, would be a Ninja Theory's DMC, which does have a few scenes that just have you like, oh, I wish I could skip cutscenes in this game.
Oh yeah. I would also say too that like keeping the storytelling in this fashion is very much like, again, that old school sort of like retro feel that Itagaki brought to the series, which was the story being in service of the gameplay, rather than the story informing the gameplay. Because I mean, the gameplay does not need to necessarily be in service of the story for the story to inform the gameplay. But like, it is very clear, like, what, again, as we said, you know, sort of at the top, there's 20 seconds dialogue, and then you're in the fight. Like, it's very clear what the player is here to do, and the game is
like the only
of that, you know,
longer quote-unquote cutscene, I think, is the one where you actually meet Sayori. That one has a bit of exposition, a bit of talk, and then it goes straight back into, oh, well, now all of the cutscenes are pretty short again. Yeah, it's good.
Which is pretty
because again,
dope.
it's not like you can't tell a story within these games. Look at DMC3, which is revered for its story still. Or like in DMC5, which has a pretty good arc for Nero anyway, which I think people should talk about more often. But yeah DMC3 definitely. As a whole, I guess, is the more like within the action gaming space, probably the best one outside of like the proper dedicated quote unquote story games like Automata or something. But within like this high octane gameplay focused action gaming space,
Yeah, I mean, I've always made because it's weird. Like, I've always made the statement that if there were ever a third person shooter that had like the gameplay of Vanquish, but like the storytelling of Control, I'd probably never need to play
it's
another
like the big
third person
issue with
shooter
Vanquish, which
ever
is
again.
where it's like, the story totally does matter, and the characterization. Yeah,
And it's important. There's some interesting themes there.
It's just kind of nothing.
But
like, it's not super interesting. Not the characters are all right, but not too all right, I guess.
Not
like
too.
You're writing a story for the game, but that doesn't mean the story doesn't matter at all. Like, I still want to play as this character, and not that Sam is like a bad guy in Vanquish, but I mean, like, in general for action games.
He's a cool guy.
You do want to play as these characters, and they need to show you why these characters are cool, and that doesn't work entirely only through gameplay. Or like, but also they want me to fight a bunch of bosses that all give me weapons. So you can just come up with the excuse of, oh yeah, this is to summon the dragon. We need to go to this many shrines. That's fine.
Yeah.
I don't care. I'm gonna do that. That's not what I mean. But like the actual character does have to make me at least not want to be repulsed, I guess. Which again, my big issue with the DMC reboot. That I just don't like these characters, even if the game is fun to play. But I don't want to play as these people, essentially.
Yeah, it's like there's obviously exceptions to the rule, right? Where like DMC reboot Virgil is like quite intentionally repulsive.
He's also not
right. Like he is written to be not a great guy. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he's not originally playable. But like, on the flip side of that, Virgil in DMC3 is kind of undeniably cool, even though he's the antagonist. So like people wanted to
and
play
you like
with
still
Virgil,
feel bad
right?
for him when he like DMC3 spoilers when stuff happens to him in general. Yeah, you're like, oh, whoa, he's a cool guy. Like he's kind of an asshole, but he's also really cool. And there's like the clear actual villain of the game. Whereas Virgil is more, as you said, like an antagonist, and he does bad shit, but you're never like, oh, you still want to play as him because he's cool. And
reboot Dante looking around like, yes, my brother's very normal private army.
And
nothing can go wrong.
Fedora. It's not actually fedora. It's like some other hat. Yeah, right. Thank you.
It's a trilby.
The cowards
it's a trilby.
The Fedora definitive edition cut. I just want to say he does not fedora. Sorry, I said it wrong again. He does wear the hat in the most recent Tappen art he's appeared in. So for all I care, they think it's.
Oh my god!
Bring back the hat to the definitive edition. But no, and I think the story. Not super exciting, but it does work in the game's favor. And in this, I don't want to say this is like what you should aspire to, because again, look at something like DMC3, 5, or Metal Gear Rising, even, where a lot of the writing is very strong and very memorable. But this is something you can do in an action game, the way the story works in Ninja Gaiden 4, without making me not want to engage with the game or being like, oh, well, now the annoying story part comes up. Like, sometimes he walks for like 10 seconds. Who cares? It's a bit annoying. They could have cut that. Like, but there's no like big walk-in sections. There's no like long-ass cutscenes I can't skip. No characters having extremely stupid exchanges that make me dislike all of them. That's all fine in Ninja Gaiden 4. It never makes me go, oh, now I need to quit because that was too annoying.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's no like there's no cutscene where I think back and be like, oh wow,
exactly.
That
like,
was
stuff
awful.
Happens, but it's not super interesting, but it's fine.
I will say I was like I was intrigued
it's like enough
on my
that's what I mean. It's like
first playthrough.
It's like enough. You are intrigued enough because there's like enough of it. It's not exactly over delivering story wise, but it's not like actively terrible. So you are kind of engaged because it is a video game story that works with it, and you are playing the action game that is fun to play. You know what I mean? Like, it's not detracting from it. Essentially, is what I mean.
Definitely.
It's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. I guess another part
Yeah,
too
we need
is
to
like
talk
the
about that one.
music here, which I gotta start from the top here. Like Ninja Gaiden fans, any Ninja Gaiden diehards that are listening,
All right.
like I have heard people try and tell me that like the music in Ninja Gaiden 4 doesn't touch the old music, and that's like the biggest cap I've ever heard in my life.
There's like
dude. I just
to follow up on this in the same vein. Actually, because I totally agree. I always there's like one memorable track from Ninja Gaiden, which is not in the 3D games. And has its best version in Warriors Orochi 3. Like, all right, go listen to Ryu's theme,
hilarious.
which is called Unbreakable Determination, which is a theme from the original 2D games.
Can't wait until Yakumo is added to Warriors Orochi whatever, and his theme song is called Unstoppable Lethal Force.
Gonna get into that, don't worry. But I will say all of Ninja Gaiden's music 1 to 3 to me is indistinct noise. I have no idea what plays at any point in this game except drums. Yeah. I know the games have drums. This is like the one thing I know. Because all action games have drums. They go like at some point. They need it. They are like pushing you forward. I get it. It's fine. Whatever. No one in their right minds, and I say this with respect for the composers, but no one remembers music in Ninja Gaiden 1 to 3 except kind of strange people.
No, I don't. I don't at all. And I mean, like, here's the thing, right? Is that like, so there's a point where in Ninja Gaiden 4, like a remix of Ryu's theme, or like a remix of the bunch of themes play. And like, there were a few people that like talked this up to me, like especially during my stream, and I went, "I'm gonna be so real, dude." I don't remember those themes
there's
at all. So this does not.
And there's a version of Unbreakable Determination in Ninja Gaiden 4. That's the only one I recognize because it's not from the 3D games.
Yeah. And like, obviously, my usual point of comparison, like yours, is DMC, right? Where like, I could say, oh yeah, I remember the music in DMC 1 because I played it so much, and like that's why the remixes in DMC 5 hit. But also, I've only ever played MGR like once or twice, and I can remember I remembered like tons and tons of lyrics and hooks and everything from that soundtrack before I even listened to it separately. You know, like because the music in that game is still, I think, one of like, if not the best soundtrack.
Yeah, it's like
in,
just
all of
so well implemented. Essentially, like it's super good. It's super well written too, but it has like by far, this is what we were talking about earlier with the boss phase transitions, where like everything in Metal Gear Rising is timed perfectly, essentially during these fights.
Oh yeah, and like you get shades of that in this game as well. Yeah, it tries. But again, I mean, number one, with the loss of the sort of cinematic ideas, or like, again, the game doesn't want to take control away from you. So it has these moments happen, like in the song, where there's supposed to be some sort of impact there, you know, but it happens while you're fighting. And that's still cool, because as weird as he can be, Victor Borba can still sing his lungs out. But my big issue is that a lot of these songs, until you listen to them in isolation, they all sound like a continuation of the same song.
It's like the ambient version of like metalcore or something. It's like there's like riffs and there's guitar solos and whatnot, but none of these are memorable. They just kind of like flow, and they accompany the game just fine. It's like, again, it's like when the game has like a little drums in the background, then you got like you got like chords or something, except like the action game version of that, because the action game needs like a bit more active music essentially, and that's what this game does. Like it's not bad, it's not detracting anything, but it isn't memorable. As you said, you can like put all of these next together and it's like, oh yeah, it's an action video game track kind of deal.
Yeah, it's also like I have this problem with lyrics that are just a little too vague, and they like appeal to more like concepts than they do. I mean, it doesn't have to be like the meme of now we will fight, let's fight, killing people and stealing their money, you know, or whatever. But there's so in and then there's times where like it's vague but also on the nose, which is weird. But like so in the final boss theme, the lyrics start out with "through destinations tall on a church in thunderous storms," which I'm like, that's like kind of like whatever, dude. But then the second half of that chorus, or that second half of that first verse, says, "Corrupted God now roars his last, umbral shadow cast."
Yeah,
which
like
is much cooler
with what's happening.
Of a lyric. Yeah, and it's like it's in line with something like, you know, "It has to be this way," where they say, "I feel new life will be born beneath the blood-stained sand." You know, or yet staring across this barren, wasted land, "I feel new life will be born beneath the blood-stained sand." But starting out with "through destinations tall" is like starting out your essay of throughout history. You know, yeah, we will fight.
It's
let
like,
us fight.
It's hard to write,
you know,
video game lyrics that aren't fucking stupid. Essentially, you're always like leaning into either being too weird or exactly. Because I remember this is a slight throwback to earlier this year when E33 came out. That one has a lot of French songs, also by Victor Borba on a side note, and I don't understand a word except like I know like 3 words of French. But I remember I was talking to a French buddy of ours, and he said, "Oh yeah, a bunch of these just spell out some of the plot." I was like, all right, well, it's related, I guess, but as you said, I think it was like related to someone making fun of the songs in Arcane, where they are literally just describing what's happening on screen, and that is lame. But also when you're saying like as you said, throughout history, it's like, okay, man, I don't care. Like,
yeah, like, okay, buddy, you know. At which, like, this is why, again, like, Devils Never Cry is also such a strong song, because there are, like, inklings of aspects of the game, like, obviously Steal the Soul for the second chance. You get the steal, like, the Soul of Steel or whatever in the game. But there's a lot of, like, you have to make sure that you're following rule of cool in these lyrics without being a little too on the nose. And that's why, like, saying, because what Victor Borba could have put in those lyrics, or the other guy's name, I forget the other composer's name, when they say "corrupted God now roars his last," he could have said, you know, something a little cornier, like, you know, corrupted, or like he could have said like, you know, "Dark Dragon's last breath, umbral shadow cast," you know, or whatever. But "corrupted God now roars his last." You don't need to finish that lyrics. It's really good. And it's like, it hangs enough, and then he uses that to rhyme with umbral shadow cast. And that's the part where, like, there's this almost pause in the instrumental, so, like, it lets you hang with it while he just, like, belts it out. And I remember hearing it for the first time during the final boss, and I was like,
it's like okay, can be, like, really good. Essentially, you want to like not entirely describe what's happening, but you also don't want to make it like too weird. I think Metal Gear Rising, as you said earlier, it has to be this way. It's like a really good example, because the fight is about these two guys beating the crap out of each other in various incredibly brutal ways, but the song is about like clash of ideals and how they or like collective consciousness just before that, being about like goals and mindsets and whatnot, which is what's happening on screen, but just in terms of the story, not in terms of what is like actually happening. It's not saying, now Armstrong throws big rock, you need to line up 3 Zandatsu cards. It's like,
it's one of those things where like the song does not need to be a play-by-play, but it does need to be relaying like the themes. This is where, like, you know, you get into different styles of commentary. right, in terms of like competitive games,
Or
which
he does
is
a DP,
where
or he does a punch,
the play-by-play
or
is
good whatever.
yeah, or he does like that's important for like people
Yeah.
to sift through what is happening, because obviously corrupted god now roars his last
Yeah.
is part of what's happening in the fight. But also, like, there's no point where Yakumo says, now I'm going to cast Umbral Shadow. He just says Umbral Shadow cast because of, like, the themes that are going on in the story. You know, like, it's a general feeling, but also it's a little, like, on the nose, too. So there's enough, like, very strong emotion behind that where it's describing, like, what's happening thematically or stylistically, I should say. But, like, you know, again, it has to be this way. I've carved my own path. You followed your wrath, but maybe we're both the same. And it's like, that is related to the conversation that they had, like, Raiden and Armstrong had prior to the fight. But it's not talking about what's happening in the moment that you hear it. It is, like, a very... I think what Metal Gear Rising does really well is that those songs are reflective or retrospective, right? They are the characters grappling with who they are and what is in front of them, not necessarily giving a play-by-play of what they are doing.
Yeah.
Which is, man, I could talk forever about MGR's OST.
Pretty good,
so
but we're not looking at MGR2 in this case, no.
No, unfortunately.
It would have been nice, but... You know,
but
we take this.
Would have been nice, but I mean, I think it's one of those things where I would have been maybe a little disappointed, even like because Ninja Gaiden is quite a different series than MGR. So like, if we had gotten an MGR2 in the sense that like the game takes control away from you to have these like stronger moments in the music, I'd have probably enjoyed it a lot, right? You know, and I would have been like, okay, this is really sick, but also do I think this is like the best thing for a Ninja Gaiden game to do? Because when you sit down to play like a Ninja Gaiden, and this is kind of a problem with like IPs in general now instead of making new ones, but like just continuing them, which is kind of a burden that MGR did not have with it. It's still a new series technically. You want to make sure that you retain a lot of that core, and I think that Ninja Gaiden 4, although there's like definitely some platinum flair to it, for better or for worse.
Hello?
Okay.
Oh, okay, there we are back.
Hello? Okay, sweet. But I was gonna say, like, I think that although Ninja Gaiden 4, I almost said MGR 4. Although Ninja Gaiden 4 has some platinum flair to it, for better or for worse, you know, rail grinding sections, it retains a lot of this core of the series that you are, I would say, unmistakably playing.
Like, you're playing their platinum spin on it, but it's not like there is the definitive platinum video game style. Like, this is not a thing, as much as people are trying to make you believe it is. But it is like very clearly platinum flavored. But as you said, you press square, triangle, 3 times square and triangle. You do an Izuna drop. I'm not saying this is like what the game hinges on, because that's stupid. But like, they are making whatever they are doing within this framework of Ninja Gaiden, and they do not leave that framework.
And I would say it's very much in the vein of like how Nier Automata's combat is definitely still different from the original Nier, but it is built on the back of that core that was established.
Yeah, they're not like
in the original
like no
Nier
one is like,
well.
the good old Nier combat, but Automata is like surprisingly respectful in how it adapts a lot of its elements. Yeah. Like, quote-unquote respectful, that's a weird word.
Yeah,
more like it's like surprisingly true to the original first game, I guess.
Well, I think it's to be said, you know, again, that like Platinum are contractors in both of these situations, and like, as much as people want to like romanticize a studio being part of a project, you know, like if somebody had said, oh, it would be really cool if Team Ninja and PlatinumGames did a Ninja Gaiden game together, or oh, wouldn't it be cool if Platinum did the last or did the next DMC? It's one of those things where like the driving creative force is what determines what goes in the game. And you know, like let's say you like hire somebody, for example, to build you like a porch or whatever, and you're also like a woodworker, but you don't want to build your own porch because, you know, maybe you don't have the time for it because you're doing other jobs. So you get somebody else to build your porch.
Yeah.
You have ideas that you want to do. It's just that you know you don't really want to do it yourself. So you get this contractor to do it. And they're not going to be like, you know what, I'll just toss out what you gave me and then build my own thing. Yeah. So like in the situation of being contractors, Platinum are expected to follow guidelines that the company that they're in wants them to follow. So like Yoko Taro doesn't want 2B or 9S or A2 to be styling on people and doing fancy weapon switching in real time and, you know, all this other stuff. At least I assume he doesn't, because that's not how
like
Armada
in this
up,
again, in this case, it's like the same example. Essentially, you're making a game in a series, and this comes with limitations. You are like, this doesn't mean you need to adhere to every single thing, because they made good bosses, so they clearly didn't. But it's like on the pitch, fucking Fumiko Yasuda is like,
what if we just made some good
please
bosses?
Make them bad again. Listen, it's in line with the tradition. That's why when they made Neo, they were like, wait a minute, we can make them good? No one told us. That's crazy. But yeah, like, clearly they are like working within the framework of the series has set, and they are doing their own thing with it, because that's just how it works when you get people to work on. Like, look at DMC3. DMC3 is within the framework of DMC1 by a different director and a largely different team, or like completely different. But it is still a DMC3 game. Like, you can play, it is still a DMC game. You can play 1 and then 3, and you're like, oh yeah, I get it. Yeah, no, I mean,
you can play 2 as well. You can see the groundwork that's laid in 2.
You can play 2, but like if you play 1 and then you play 3, you're still like, oh yeah, I totally get how this is the same series, even if it's completely different people. Like, I know it's technically both Capcom, but that's a name. Who cares? No one cares about the company name. If they make it's like the people making it, right? And it is completely different people, but they are still making a DMC game, and in this case, they clearly made a Ninja Gaiden game. Like, if you, it is very clear. Like, maybe you don't like it for whatever reason, individual stuff they put in, for whatever individual reasons you have, which is, there's a lot of weird Ninja Gaiden talk. Let's not get into that, but like as an action game, it is like very clearly a Ninja Gaiden game, and I think that's good. Otherwise, they shouldn't make a Ninja Gaiden game. They get there, but I also don't think they need to adhere to like this super strict idea of what is Ninja Gaiden, because not even Ninja Gaiden does that. Look at the step from 1 to 2, which is gigantic. These are like completely different games. And whereas then 3 or Razor's Edge specifically is a bit closer to 2. But Razor's Edge in general is like closer to 2, just in terms of how it plays.
Well, I was gonna say, like, this is the difference between DMC3 and DMC4, right? Is that like DMC3 is made with a lot of like DMC1's design philosophy in mind, and then what that game became later, from like how players developed and like people explored the game, a lot of like the idea of efficiency and like puzzle solving on a lot of enemies, to the degree of like, for example, the Dullahans, or like the Soul Eaters. A lot of that stuff is scrapped in DMC4 in favor of player expression, and designing those characters more like they are just straight up, fighting game characters, which I think DMC3 Dante kind of is, but it's a little more it's definitely a lot more based around like finding
like
the answers to
it doesn't
puzzles.
like elemental
as opposed to
weakness is still a thing in 3 to my knowledge. So this is like not really an RPG element, but as you said, this is more like finding the correct solution. Because like, well, yeah,
and then like, yeah, and now like in DMC 4 again, a lot of that difficulty, like straight up difficulty, is sort of like scrapped in favor of just giving the player like a lot of really fun tools to work with. And the difference between like Ninja Gaiden 3 to Ninja Gaiden 4 is that I would say undeniably the game is a little easier than previous entries. But they give you a lot more freedom to do some very cool things. And, you know, like I had never seen people posting combo clips from the previous Ninja Gaidens, but now people are doing that. And that's thanks to things like having real-time weapon swap, or having tools that are designed to be pretty flashy, that sort of thing. And like, there's definitely puzzle-solving elements still to this game, and I think that it largely is geared towards people that want to replay it and really want to like do no damage runs or do master ninja
for no
runs.
Damage. That's always like a good sign that they want you to do it.
Yeah. And they even have that like extra thing with Death Wish where it'll like take away all of like your health upgrades and stuff.
And
which,
a cool
again,
mode as well,
because
it makes me able to replay my NG Plus file, but without those upgrades, which I won't do because I'm not an insane person, at least not in the hardest difficulty. But like, it's a good option, and I think having all the weapons, for example, but none of the health upgrades, is a pretty cool balanced choice. And
it's pretty interesting.
I was gonna say, if you have anything to add to this, feel free to actually. I was thinking about like, because we were just saying this is like an option you can play. Also, something you like way earlier talked about, which is the like the battle content, so to speak, of this game is there's like trials you can do. You can refight all the bosses in those trials as well, which is really nice. There's even an unlockable hidden behind it for some reason, but it's nice that it's there. I'm not going to tell what it is, but it's just really cool. Like it's good. This is
it's
like kind of.
in DMC 5 you have like the Bloody Palace, right? But in this game you have the trials, you have combat trials, you have purgatory trials, you have combat trials, you have boss trials, you have playing the game on Death Wish, you have playing the boss trials. And
I'm a big fan of combat trials because Ninja Gaiden 3 had these as well, and they were I think 2 as well. About for 1, I'm not so sure.
I believe so.
But they have like just these are like literally just combat. They are in specific rooms, specific like enemy compositions and whatnot. And I like this a lot. I think this is good. Tie some unlockables to these, please. Give me like even more of a reason to play them.
That'd be sick.
I think this is really cool because essentially, quote unquote, just replaying your action game can be like a bit tedious at times. You always come up to the one part you don't like, and so on. You fight like the boss you don't really like. It's good. Like I love replaying DMC 4, DMC 5, even 3. Even though I always get lost in 3, I still don't know that game by heart, despite spending a lot of time with it.
Rough.
But like I love doing that, but I wish these games had a mode like this. Like just here's a bunch of like curated combat scenarios essentially. I don't want I think like Bloody Palace is going into that direction, but again, Bloody Palace is very like strict in terms of like not difficulty wise, but yeah, exactly. You fight like
for a while too.
These very specific waves, and I don't mean to say I want randomization, because again, I think the curation of this aspect is actually what makes it interesting. Where like I am fighting a very deliberately made combat scenario, but it is like a cool way to go. Oh yeah, well we couldn't put this into the story, or this wouldn't make sense, or it was already long enough, this level, or whatever. This enemy composition doesn't work. in the story. Just put it into a mode like that. That's fun. Give me like individual levels in there. I think that's really good. I think a lot of more action games should try to have just you finish the game and then the game's like, hey, here's a bunch of combat stuff. You fight and then you fight specific scenarios we made just for this, and then you unlock some other bullshit. I don't know, cosmetics, obviously, because yeah, and I think that's really cool.
Cosmetics cool.
Again, old Ninja Gaiden games also had it. Not exactly like an innovation, but that doesn't make it worse. So it is very much worth praising, in my opinion.
I would say too. Also, better than DMC5.
Yeah,
it lets you
so
refight every boss, not just certain ones. Because DMC5 actually excludes a few bosses from that. Which is, I mean, the bosses that it excludes, I wouldn't say are highlights of the game, but it is the matter of the principle. Yeah. And the other thing too is that like, this is the only action game that I've seen in recent years where the in-game timer actually tracks milliseconds to the 100th, which is like, that's something that like, very few people will care about, like myself, but it is really cool that it does it. And when I say to the 100th, it will say like, 30.257 seconds. And that is sick. That is awesome for leaderboard purposes. So like, as much as we've sort of like said, oh, this game does, on the presentation part, there's some things that fall short in comparison to its contemporaries in terms of like throwing you into the game and telling you like, yes, play more. Especially post game, I think this is one of the best examples of an action game doing that in recent memory.
I wish DMC5 had this, because like, I mean, like,
I wish too, dude. Yeah,
we are like DMC is kind of like the bread and butter for me and you personally, but like in terms of action gaming, I mean, this is like the most important one. And like, if those had that kind of content, like I say content quote unquote because it's like an evil word nowadays. but I mean like in the video game sense of content, which is a lot different. Yeah, that'd be cool. I'd really like that. Ninja Gaiden 4 does a pretty good job at that, and the best part is it's fun to play, so you actually want to do them. Yeah.
Absolutely.
We should mention it does have an announced DLC at this point, which you can buy with the. This isn't like this isn't me going, oh, it has a DLC, don't buy the game. It's like announced before the game's out. That's not how games work. Every game nowadays comes announced with a season pass if they make one.
Every game.
Fucking Alan Wake 2 had one, and that's like arguably the best game of the last 10 years. So who cares? Like. I don't like, you get what I mean. This isn't like the great evil. We are just past that. We're not moving back before 2 times before that. It does have one which will bring in, to my knowledge, just like a level pack with like new story, new weapons for Ryu, blah blah blah. Yeah, I think so.
And I think Yakumo as well.
This is actually, again, I don't mean to say they need to like turn DMC into a sort of service game, even though I would play that. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. But and I don't mean to say that DMC needs any sort of quote unquote post launch support. But it is pretty interesting, because if you asked me what would I like about my favorite action game, or like my favorite action games rather, the answer is probably more of it. Like if I want them to change stuff about DMC5, for example, beyond like the very minute details, like I don't like the transition between these two levels, whatever, who cares. But like in general, I would like to play more DMC5. I would pay for more DMC5 is what I mean, essentially. I did. I got special edition.
I mean, it's interesting to consider, right, that like to this day, Ninja Theory DMC is the only DMC game that's given like additional
like
playable
a
characters,
proper
their own
story
stuff.
DLC.
You know, like because even DMC2 with Lucia, the levels mostly are a rehash of Dante's or a remix of Dante's, and she has much less than him. The only one that I think is like wildly different maybe is like mission 7 and 8. But like Virgil getting his own campaign rather than just replaying Dante's or the other characters in DMC Reboot is like one of the things that sets that game apart. And that is like a really strong aspect of like the overall like package aspect of that game. So it's going to be pretty cool to see what Platinum and Team Ninja do with like the story DLC.
Like, I'm looking forward to that. I want, like, there's enough game, don't get me wrong, there's not what I mean. But if you're like, oh yeah, we are selling you more with like more weapons, count me in. Like I'll be there.
I just hope that the run is not too long. Also, if it was like under if it was under an hour, I'd be like, heck yeah.
Like Metal Rising had that as well with 2 times even though one of them is like a little more gimmicky, but it does let you play as what's the name? Is it Sam?
Oh, the Blade Wolf one.
Sam.
Jetstream Sam.
It was pretty fun,
and that is a
like
really
a lot of
cool
it is of course
too.
reused assets because making assets is pretty expensive. Even though it does have unique
pretty
stuff,
expensive.
But Sam is really cool. I wish that DLC let you just play as Sam in the main game. Like this is what I mean. I don't think these games need stuff after they are out. This game is completely fine the way it is. Although I wouldn't mind them patching a few things, but that's a different story. I mean, like, they don't need to patch in, like, new modes or some shit. Totally I don't care. But, like, I think this is a good genre that hasn't really explored this a lot, which is why I think this is cool. I think it's good to add this. And
Definitely agree. I mean, I paid $90 for the game, and I still, I mean, even with what I have now, between like the pre-order costumes and all the other content, I'm like, knowing that the story DLC is coming, I'm like, that was worth
exactly.
it. It's worth it so far.
I'm looking forward to that. Like, I'm not losing sleep over not knowing what it's like, what it looks like, but when they announce it, I'll be there. Don't you worry. Yeah, so it's a pretty good game. Pretty good. Yeah, no,
pretty awesome game.
I definitely like recommend playing this, even if you're like, and if you like action games, if you don't hate action games, is what I mean.
I think it's still on Game Pass,
because
right?
it is published by Microsoft, if I recall correctly. Exactly. They didn't develop any of that, but I assume they funded it.
I will say one thing there. So on a hardware like level, I will say this game like runs amazingly, and it's like pretty far and away from like, because it uses Platinum's proprietary engine, I believe. So it's not using UE5 or Unreal Engine 5 for those that are not privy to acronyms. But it is like it has run really well, I think, until recent patches for some people. Because they did mess up the ultra wide resolution on that, and I think you were saying too that that you had some problems with slowdown in a couple of sections, and I think it's probably because it's PS5. Well, I've seen somebody that had the same issue as you with slowdown in the rail sections. So it might be a thing with recent patches that they'll have to actually go back and fix again.
Yeah, but it is.
So that's not great.
There isn't like it's not like a case where you're like, oh yeah, the performance of this game sucks, by the way.
No, like I run this game at high everything, and I mean my computer's really good now, but I mean, the recommended is only a 2070 for a GPU, so that's really good considering other games are like, oh yeah, you can have a 4070 and UE5 is still going to cause stutters as well, which is, or if you just Remedy, then
it does have a 120 FPS mode on PS5 as well. I just played in the in-between one, which is a 60. I'm not like the biggest frame man. I can't tell you if it's like perfect 60 at all times. Generally speaking, most games aren't perfect 60 at all times. It's kind of like
most of them are
like
59.94 or something.
It's kind of like a result of how games work in general.
Yeah.
But I think having a 120 FPS mode is really cool. More games should have it. I've used it in a bunch of games, and it's always really nice. Like on PS5, I mean, obviously on PC, just let me do that anyway. But I mean, like on consoles, if you can do it. I think like I played it in the performance mode, but without the 120. It frame rate wise looks super nice, except for the weird parts I had during the traversal sections. Only on my hard mode replay, by the way. Not on my original playthrough. And I think like there's just like, because I'm not super huge into discussing graphics unless they actually stick out, but I think like the image quality isn't amazing on performance mode. Like you don't look at the game and you're like, oh, I gotta take a screenshot of this, but it looks fine. There's like this is like like kind of checkbox stuff where it's like, yeah, I don't want to like gouge my eyes out when I look at the game. It's fine. I don't care. But it runs well, which is more important again.
Pretty true.
You get like it's a very responsive feeling game as a result. Everything you do, even though I kept pressing the wrong block button for the first hour or so. Yeah, we need like a button on a controller that is just called block. We need to get rid of all the differences. Yeah, exactly. Like
just
R1,
labeled
R2, and block.
It's like I was telling you, there was a guy on Twitter that was like, "Oh yeah, change your R1 button or your block button to R1. That's way better." And I did that for a little bit, and I was like, "This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard." I'm changing this back to R2, dude.
Yeah, but
forget that.
It controls well. I just wasn't used to it at the start. And every action game puts the block button on some other stupid button, and they're like, "Oh yeah, L1 in this one."
Yeah, in DMC it's circle by default.
And DMC has like the dumbest dodge input ever, which is amazing when you get used to it. But when you tell it to someone, they just like, "What?" Like if you're playing Nero, I should say.
What?
On Dante it doesn't count because he just has a circle dodge, which is fine. What was I getting at? Anyway, yeah, gameplays really well. It just feels really nice to play. A lot of I gotta do like a special shout out to a specific move because whenever I play action games, I get like favorite moves.
Boy.
In Metal Gear Rising back in the day TM, that was like 12 years ago, Jesus Christ. It's triangle into circle into triangle, which is like the coolest move Raiden has, in my opinion. In this game, it is a very specific and kind of weird one. In DMC, by the way, it's exceeded High Roller, which is the coolest move in all 5 games. Is not even up for debate. But
okay, buddy.
There's a lot of
you
stuff
say
that
so.
Game. In Ninja Gaiden 4, one of my favorites is the Blood Raven form of the first weapon, the hold version of the mid-air square. I don't know. It's like a uppercut and then like a slash downward. And the downward one hits the ground, and it is very reminiscent of when Raiden's attacks hit the ground in Rising, because it makes like a really loud noise. Like, just this really loud metal on metal kind of noise. It's really good. And like this is like weirdly specific, but whenever I play it, this is like feel for action games to me. When I play action games, I'm always like, do I even want to do this move? Or it also works the other way around, where I'm like, well, I don't really need to do this move right now, but it is cool, and I like doing it. Yeah, exactly.
But
and
I do want to do it.
That's something, that's like a good sign to me, that this game has a lot of moves that I just like doing, because they look cool, and they feel good, and they sound nice.
Yep.
So, yeah. No, I like action games. Action games are a lot of things in terms of gameplay, where the mechanics and the feel seem to always be kind of like at odds with each other, And I like
Yeah.
when they both work out well. And I think it works out pretty well here in this game.
Same. Indeed. Well, I think that's about it then, right? Unless you had anything else you
Not
wanted
that
to
I
add,
can
really.
think of. Except you should buy the game maybe and play it.
That's fair. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because after this point, we just really be getting into spoilers and doing play-by-plays of the game, and we just want to leave some to the imagination.
Yeah,
We've
I
gone
think these
over
like
a
play-by-plays for like something like this is not really necessary. You like get the idea, you get why we like it, what like points of contention are and whatnot. So like like both of us definitely recommend the game. It's pretty good.
Definitely.
And it's not like we there's like it's not like we are starving in terms of good games. So this one's still worth your consideration, in my opinion.
Nope. Definitely, because there's not very often that like new AAA 3D hack and slash comes along, especially not ones that are made of like by big veterans of the industry. So, so it's pretty dope. But that has been Ninja Gaiden 4 on the Compendium of Discomfort. I am, and I will continue to be.
Yeah, you can
DECosmic.
you can find his links in the description, by the way.
Oh yeah, definitely. You can find me at they'll be in the description, but as Don/Michael just said, but it's twitch.tv/DECosmic or YouTube / @DECosmicRuns. If you're on Blue Sky, you can find me at decosmic.bsky.social. I should really get my own domain because they cost like $50 a year or something, which is not a ton. So, but I've been playing a lot of the game. I'm doing speedruns of it, and I'm going to continue to do speedruns of it for a while. Probably even more when the DLC drops. So look for that there. And if I start to hate the game for some reason, I'm going to go back to the UC5. So.
UC5's there to comfort you, like, oh, come here, Cosmo.
Come on, let's do. Come on back.
All right. And I hope all of you have a nice.
All right.
I almost said ninja night, but I just meant night. Yeah, exactly.
A nice ninja night. Dark greetings. Type beat.
All right. Cut. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.